Joining us tonight. I'm working off of my laptop, and so I'm going off of my template, and I'm also losing the screen. So I apologize if I go off screen. I don't mean to. This is our second time that we have a hybrid meeting, so I thank everybody for your patience. And we do have quorum tonight, so we'll get this meeting started. Are we ready to move on to do the motion for the agenda, Allie, or you need some more time?
I believe I'm ready. Let's check. Rosa, are you ready to dive in?
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much for checking. Rosa, you're rocking it.
Okay, fantastic. So Chuck, just really quick, are you in Alaska?
Yes.
Okay, that's cool. I was just wondering, we're kind of all over the place tonight. That's great. All right, great. Could I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
And that's Elliot, right? Do I have a
Yes.
second?
I second.
Okay, fantastic. Let me scroll down. Okay. We'll go now to, okay, approval, sorry. Allie, I have a future board and tours, but are we just going to go to public participation? Would that be okay?
Sure. Do you want to change the agenda and do public participation and then future board items?
No, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead and do that. It's just that, no, please go ahead and do that. I apologize.
No, it's okay. Lots going on. So for future board items, I'm going to tell, there is a lot going on, members of the PRAB, and certainly our team is aware, both with this board and with city council. We have a lot of upcoming really critical conversations as we work to implement the 2022 Parks and Recreation Plan. So on your document, I'll highlight that just Thursday and Friday night, City Council hosted their midterm retreat. Midterm meaning that this is year 2 of all the current this council's work together. There was a lot of lovely conversation about our work, our action plan. You all got an overview on that in January, and they also expressed a lot of interest in the work we're doing to identify funding to address the funding gap in Parks and Recreation, with particular interest around how we'll be funding the infrastructure with the aging recreation centers. You all will get more of an overview on that at an upcoming meeting. So flagging, in addition to what is on your document, I wanted to call out a few things. One is that the study session for the library reallocation, sorry, it's not a study session. It is going to be under matters from the city manager on the March 16th meeting. I think it's currently flagged as during the March 9th meeting. It's been rescheduled for March 16th. I also wanted to give you a heads up because you'll have one short meeting between now and then. On March 23rd, City Council is going to have a study session on downtown streets as public spaces. That project connects closely to work we're doing across the downtown area. Certainly the Civic Area Phase 2 project, work we're doing to look at the Arboretum, and later in 2024, the Pearl Street Mall. So all of those are conversations that connect. We'll be bringing back to you summaries. You don't need to watch City Council for the next indefinite future, but we're going to be there a lot. As we move into April, we'll be talking to them. We have a 3-hour study session with city staff and Boulder County commissioners to talk exclusively about homelessness. And I know that's been an item of interest for the PRAB. As that agenda materials are organized, and certainly as their outcomes, will report back to the PRAB. Also wanted to highlight that in March, it will be the last meeting for board members Ugar and Scott. And so at that meeting, we will give them their appreciation and recognition. The new board members will start with our financial study session on April 3rd. So the minute those names are selected, which is on March 16th also, we'll be reaching out to them to see what we can do to get them up to speed on the budget session. That's the other thing I wanted to flag for you for your work as board members, is that at the next meeting, we'll start our march towards 2024 budget development. That'll start with a budget overview that Jackson and his team will share with you, where they share our year-end standing from the 2022 budget and some of the priorities that we've identified. And then we'll walk you through month by month. In April, we'll start talking about some of the policy issues, probably fee proposals. You have your study session on both the fees and the capital investment strategy. And then in May, we expect to get your final direction to be included in the 2024 budget. So I know that's all written on your piece of paper, but I call that out because we're going to be asking a lot of you and board members in the coming months, and I just encourage you to raise your hands, to ask questions, to reach out to myself or any member of our team if we can support you in the roles you have to fulfill in these next few months. And that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ally. I appreciate that. Next, we'll go on to start public participation. And this portion of the meeting is for members of the public to communicate ideas or concerns to the board regarding parks and recreation issues for which a public hearing is not scheduled later in the meeting. Tonight, we have three public speakers that have signed up, and we'll go ahead. Oops, pardon me. And during this public participation time, the public is encouraged to comment only on the need for parks and recreation programs and facilities as they perceive them. All speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Depending on the nature of your matter, you may or may not receive a response from the board after you deliver your comments, but we're always listening to you and we really appreciate your feedback. So Secretary Rosa, if you could present the guidelines on the screen, that'd be great.
Can you see them on the screen?
I do.
Okay. Oh, yep. All remarks and testimony shall be limited to matters related to city business. No participant shall make threats or use other forms of intimidation against any person. Obscenity and other speech and behavior that disrupts or otherwise impedes the ability to conduct the meeting are prohibited. And as a reminder, participants are required to sign up to speak before 4:30 on the day of the meeting, using the name they are commonly known by, and individuals must display their whole name before being allowed to speak online. Currently, only audio testimony is permitted online. Thank you, Pam. If you can give me a minute to start the stopwatch.
I sure will. And if we have our first person on deck, it would be Patrick O'Rourke.
Just 1 second, Pam.
Of course, sure thing. We're all patient here, no problem.
Okay, can you see my stopwatch on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, I will begin if you would, after you call your first public comment.
Sure. Patrick O'Rourke, are you there?
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Thank
Okay,
you.
great. Thanks for your patience, Patrick.
No, I'm familiar with the hybrid program. I appreciate it. Hello, everybody. My name is Patrick O'Rourke. I'm the Preservation Chair for Historic Boulder. And I wanted to touch base with the Parks and Rec Board regarding 2 items. Number 1 is the possibility of a civic historic district. And I wanted to go over just real quickly the background on it, and then to touch base on the HIP. Back in 2021, June of 2021, Friends of the Bandshell and Historic Boulder requested that the Glen Huntington Bandshell boundary be expanded to the original request that was made in 1995. In November of 2021, the Landmarks Board initiated and moved forward to approve that expansion in December and January, and it was brought forward to your organization, the Parks and Rec Board, in January of 2022. And if you want to go back through your files, it's pages 21 through 40, so there's no reason to go over it. I found what was most interesting is the half-hour dialogue you had regarding that, and it was very interesting. My observation of the feedback was from the Parks and Rec Board is you didn't understand why the Historic Boulder and the Friends of the Bandshell wanted to expand the boundary. They wanted to know, or your board wanted to know at that time, whether there was a threat of any time going on, which there wasn't. And why, and then also it was recommended by this board, the PRAB board, that the HIP was not completed and that they thought it was appropriate to wait for the HIP to be done. Well, at that time, you didn't realize that we were under a timeline for the city council to approve it, which is within 120 days of that recommendation. Therefore, it went before the city council, and I wanted to read just one paragraph. And it was the recommendation that the Boulder City staff gave to the city council on their June 14th meeting. And it reads, staff recommends city council not approve the ordinance for the following reasons. While staff agrees with the landmarks board that the expanded landmark boundary meets the criteria for evaluation, it considers that the area would be more logically included in a civic area historic district to include the band shell, the Boulder Tea House, the city transfer and storage building, the atrium, and the Penfield Tate Second Municipal Building, including the expanded area in the context of the historic building or district, would provide additional time for staff, the landmarks board, and the Parks and Recreation Board to work collaboratively to meet the shared goals for this area. If the city council chooses not to move forward with the expansion of this boundary at this time, historic preservation staff will commit to making development of the civic area historic district to include the band shell and all of Block 13 a work program priority for the completion in 2023. And that direction was given to city staff at the city council meeting at that time. And I think I'm out of time. So thank you. And I just wanted to follow up and touch base on that.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Our next speaker is Nikki McCord.
Hello, thank you, everyone. My name is Nikki McCord. Unauthorized people are accessing the North Boulder Rec Center during non-business hours. This is unsafe for patrons and staff. As a patron who uses the North Boulder Rec Center during the 6 a.m. hour, I do not feel safe using the facility now that I have this knowledge. The North Boulder Rec Center has had 2 publicized gun instances, one in July 2022 and one in February 2023. The presence of guns on the campus and the knowledge that the building is not being properly secured at night is alarming and dangerous. I am asking for 2 things to take place. 1, an audit of the closing procedure of the North Boulder Rec Center. This audit will determine if the individuals responsible for securing the facility at night are following protocol. If not, protocol must be followed for the safety of patrons and staff. Number 2, more than 1 employee should be responsible for opening the North Boulder Rec Center for daily use. If closing procedures are not being followed, it is irresponsible to only have 1 person responsible for opening the facility if and when unauthorized individuals are in the building during non-business hours. Please let me know when 1, both, or other safety measures are taken to ensure the safety of both patrons and staff at the North Boulder Rec Center. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next public speaker and last comment is from Larry McKeown.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Good evening. My name is Larry McKeown. I've been a Boulder resident for 33 plus years and an avid user of City Parks and Rec Services for 20 years and been interacting with the Parks and Rec staff for the better part of the last 15 years. My points this evening are: aquatic user groups are desiring historical operating hour access to the reservoir. We are willing and do pay for services consumed. And the city's calculations presented later on this evening are skewed to present an erroneous impression that user groups are subsidized. Pre-pandemic, the reservoir used to open at 5 a.m. This enabled those motivated enough to get on the water as soon as the sun came up. This enabled BAM volunteers to establish a swimmer check-in and set up an open water swim course to start at 6 a.m. We're only looking for a return to some level of historic reservoir access. We're not looking for excessive out of hours operation. Last week, city staff presented the 2023 reservoir rates to adult user groups operating outside of quote, normal operating hours. The message presented at the time was the most uncharacteristically inflexible and skewed presentation of data I have experienced in all my years of interacting with city staff. The details of this are in this evening's packet, and you will hear a sanitized version from city staff later. A 300% pricing increase decision was made in advance of that meeting. The short of what we were told was that the city will not continue to subsidize user groups, and the city doesn't view the user groups as partners in providing any community benefit. As an alternative to paying the out of hours price increase, user groups were given the same options as last year. BAM and the rowers last year did as suggested by the city staff to share the costs of early admittance to the reservoir during the summer, and we were willing to do it again in 2023. We also ended up paying city staff to be present for a full hour of time, despite needing less. Note, we also paid the full rate for watercraft permits, on-site storage, facility access, and rental fees, and we supplied our own volunteer safety personnel along with the requisite training to meet or exceed any city requirements, and we have the necessary insurance to back us and cover us. This was the luxury of just doing setup work for a swim that occurs during normal operating hours. As you can hear, we're not against paying for services used. What we are against is paying an overpriced rate that's based on a skewed analysis. This brings me back to the 300% increase figure. The calculation that was used took total operating budget divided by the total number of operating hours to arrive at a uniform blanket dollar value. This is the value applied and against which we've been unjustly characterized as receiving a subsidy. No discount is offered given the early morning hour and the reduced staff present at that time. The reservoir already acknowledges different usage in the off-season and adjusts the entrance rate by up to 100%. PRAB has also asked for alternative transportation discount, which has been enacted. When a user group is willing to self-support to the point of supplying equipment, personnel, training, and insurance coverage to defray our costs at an underutilized hour of the day, why are we penalized for our efforts? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe that's it, Rosa. Is that correct?
Yes, public comment on before 4:30.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Did any of the PRAB members want to comment on any of these topics?
This is
Yeah,
Chuck. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna flag that Elliot has a physical hand up and Chuck has a virtual hand up, so I can see both, and so helping you with.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I'll just go with Elliot first.
Sure. This is directed at staff. What is the PRAB's role in creating a historic district, if any? For the first comment.
Tina Briggs is our senior landscape architect who's been involved in all things historic properties in this specific conversations. Tina, if you could help us with that.
Yeah, I mean, our role is really, so as you guys remember with the band shell, when they brought to us, there was some misunderstanding and also wanting to have some thought process around when it's a parkland and what's affecting it. So in this case in particular, our historic preservation team are actually going to lead the charge of what that looks like. And they're going to basically start out with, let's look at the area. Let's figure out what a sensible boundary is. And then look at a pros and cons list. Like, what are the benefits to doing a historic district? And then, what are the cons to that same side of the coin? And so we'll bring that information back to you. So what I think I'm hoping will happen is first of all, staff will have an alignment that we either support it or decide we don't want to move forward with it. Whatever that decision is, we would then bring it to the board and get your opinion on that. And then we would actually go out to the community as well, because as part of that application, there is community engagement. And then, as you know, Parks and Recreation, we're very heavy public involvement. So we want them to also fully understand in layman terms what the pros and cons to having it be a historic district would be.
Got it. Would we be taking an action item on that or just advising?
It would be an advising, so much like with, it'll be similar to the process with the band shell boundary, but hopefully we're in front of it and you have more information further in advance.
Thank you.
Tina, that was great. I want to double click just for the board's benefit. If you'll think back to the conversation we had in October with the shalls and the mays and the charter, You do not have a mandated role when it comes to a historic district on parkland. There is precedent that you are consulted and that your input is considered. So this is the PRAB may be consulted on this, and what Tina is saying that you will be consulted and your input will be considered. Mark Davison, Planning
Thank you.
Senior Manager.
We are discussing with preservation staff, the planning and design service staff, transport staff. So as Xiaomi came last month to present the civic area update, this effort will be folded into that, so we're not out of sync. So for instance, no decision would be made on the design for the civic area until this thing is.
Thanks.
Great, Chuck?
Yeah, I'd like to find out from Director Ali Rhodes if she's familiar with the issue that Nikki McCord raised about intruders in the North Boulder Rec Center and potential of them being present when the building is opened again in the morning. Do you know about this incident?
Yeah, and I appreciated, Nikki McCord had emailed the PRAB and staff received that email. I believe it was over a week ago. So we were able to verify, first of all, our protocols do not allow for unauthorized access. They include very specific protocols to ensure that the building is clear when it is closed and alarmed for the evening. And then since then, we've also asked the staff at the North Boulder Recreation Center to ensure that those protocols are being followed, and we believe that they are. We have no evidence to suggest that they are not. They've reviewed cameras. There are security cameras inside the facility. And so Scott, I'm going to ask Scott Schuttenberger, Deputy Director, to add in if I'm missing any details, but I believe that's what we've confirmed since being shared of this concern.
Yeah, there's also a building alarm system and it has not gone off during the time when it's been armed. We do receive a phone call when that occurs. And there have not been any alarms set off in the building, which means once the alarm is set, there has not been movement in the building. And we do have a cleaning crew that does come in the evenings and does cleaning. They disarm it or will rearm the building when they leave. But we do feel safe that and confident that the building is not being used inappropriately during off hours. Additionally, we have two people, one typically a lifeguard or aquatics worker and a front desk member open the building. So in the morning, there's not just one person coming in to unlock and open the facility.
So to your knowledge, there's been no event of someone staying overnight in the building?
Nothing has been brought to our attention and we have not seen anything on the cameras.
For accuracy, I'm aware of an incident over 2 years ago.
Is there anything else on this? Did that answer your question?
I think Chuck might be frozen.
Okay, I was wondering.
Or he's being very contemplative. He can, I don't know if he can hear us, but I can follow up with him online and ensure that we've addressed his concerns.
Great. So I have a request for another public speaker who missed the deadline because they were working. And so I'm going to put it up to the PRAB to see if they will allow this person to speak, and if they would like to speak regarding the band shell. Do we take that for a vote, Ali? How does that work?
I'm thinking of the board rules. I don't know that it has to be a vote. I think it is, I mean, it's not a formal vote for action, but it should be with the board's approval because it is a rule that has been set that, yeah.
Well, we typically say no, but this person was working and has sent an email. They have sent 2 emails trying to get in. So I'd hate for this person to have to wait a whole nother month.
I would offer that your precedent has been is that you allow, my understanding since the 4:30 rule was set, is that you have allowed a grace period of 1 month for a person, but then after if it happens again, that you have told them, they're aware of the rules. So I think there is precedent for you to allow grace for 1 meeting.
Okay, that sounds good.
I move to allow this person to speak.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I hope, let's see if she is still there. Catherine? Do you happen to still be?
Is there any opposition to the motion I just made? I know there's a second.
So before we move
Mary
forward,
said, okay. I'm sorry, I can see the screen, but I don't see if she's there.
I just unmuted her.
Okay, great, all right.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello.
Catherine, it's your turn, go right ahead.
Okay. Oh, thank you so very much. I just couldn't get the scheduling and I was having trouble signing up, but I'll take just a very short time to thank Tina and Ally and just for having the HIP meeting that we all went to and reviewed. And it seems to me that that is coming along very nicely. And as far as the band shell is concerned, I just, Peter Pollock was the director of planning in the city of Boulder for quite a few years. And Peter, in the Carnegie Library, there are original drawings from Frederick Law Olmsted of landscape plans that he had. And there is one in March of 1923, I believe. And there's this cryptic note on the drawing that says, please see the attached plant list. And of course, there isn't a plant list, and now it's 100 years old. But somehow Peter Pollock was able to locate this almost 100-year-old plant list. And it's very exciting that we can now put the plant list together with Frederick Law Olmsted's actual landscape design drawing. And I just wanted you guys to know that. We people who hang out at Carnegie Library are very excited by this. And we'll let you know. I mean, I guess my question is, are some of these trees that Frederick Law Olmsted planted in the 1920s or 1924, are they still living and well in the park? And so that's my question. And I don't know how we'll find that out, but I just wanted you to know that this was quite a wonderful discovery. And I think Peter may have found this by going to the Library of Congress. So it's all very exciting for those of us who love the park and the band shell. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Catherine. And thank you to the board for allowing her to comment. Appreciate it. Okay, we will move on to a consent agenda. Could I get a motion for approval of the minutes from January 23rd, 2023? I'm looking, I don't see any hands.
I'll motion to approve the minutes.
Is that you, Jason?
Yes.
You're so small. I think. Okay,
Second.
great.
Not in real life.
Thank you. We got a first from Jason and a second from Chuck. And were there any corrections? I'm assuming everything was fine. Okay. Motion. Okay, got that. Okay, sorry, everything's so small here. Okay, hearing no opposition, the motion passes and the minutes are approved. Well, there are no action items tonight. And there
Excuse me,
are,
may I interrupt for just a moment?
of course.
Anita Spears has a message asking someone to let her into the building.
Okay, she's here. Thank
Oh,
you.
okay. I just showed up and I need to be made a panelist so I can turn my video on. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. Great. So we'll now go to matters from the department and we'll give it back over to our director, Ally Rhodes, for 2022 annual progress report.
Yeah, I'd love to pause and just talk through the consent agenda and see if any members of the board had questions or comments on the consent agenda. I see one from Jason.
Great.
Okay, it wasn't on the consent agenda, but it was on the calendar that you, that.
For the future board items.
I just had a question. I know, saw on there was it the Waterside chat? I just wanted to see how that went, if there's any report back to the board. It looks like it was on February 13th.
Sure. Scott was there. He can give you a brief overview.
Yeah, we had some really productive discussion. We had just closed down some of the permit sales for small boats. I believe they have now sold out. And for small watercraft, and had some good feedback from community members that attended the Waterside chat. I think again, a lot of the discussion was about after hours usage of the facility and just in general, the concern about making sure that we're fully activating the new facility in that space. But it was a good discussion, and I think there is a report that we can also share. There were some notes that came out of that meeting that I'd be happy to share as well.
Can I ask a follow-up? Are there any where next steps planned as far as, you know, continue to dialogue with the community there?
That was our last Waterside chat of the year. But certainly we want to keep dialogue going and moving in the right direction, and certainly open and honest and straightforward communication. So we're going to encourage community members to reach out to us if they have other questions or things they want us to be focused on.
Thanks.
Yep. Stephanie, anything on your end to add?
No, you've got it all. Anything else on the consent agenda?
Chuck?
Thanks. Larry McKeough had a comment about the hourly rate being calculated for access to the Boulder Reservoir being based on the full daytime rate versus reduced costs that might apply during early opening hours with just one or two staff members present. I wonder if I could get a comment on the relevance and reality of his comment.
Absolutely. I'm happy to talk about that as well. And so we did an off-season review of all the expenses at the reservoir. We took a look at all the hours of operation for the facility, and we looked at our direct expenses associated with running the reservoir. We understand that there are times early in the morning that there may not be the level of staffing that there are at all times during regular operating hours. And so we certainly heard the concern about why wouldn't we reduce those costs during early morning access when all those resources are not directly there. That being said, it is important that we note that we only included the direct expenses, not indirect expenses. So Stephanie's time, my time, business services time, and the other expenses that go alongside providing the reservoir for access were not included in the cost associated with the number that was presented to the user groups last week. I will say that we looked at things extensively, and the actual subsidization that we level of subsidy that we provided a year ago was 58%. With private access to a facility, that's not something that typically would be subsidized for any group or organization. So moving forward into this summer in 2023, we looked at the exact cost of what we think the facility is going to take to run with similar hours of operation, and presented a number that continues to provide a 25% subsidy for private access to the facility, in hopes that we move to a zero subsidy level in 2024. So there's a lot of different ways we can run the numbers and look at things, and Jackson and his team did a phenomenal job in providing us information. But ultimately, when a group has private access to a facility, they should be paying for that access and the costs associated with running that facility. So that's the direction we went. Ali, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add on that.
I don't think so. I guess let's pause and Chuck, let's see if that clarified it for you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that philosophy. I just want to make sure that the actual costs for charging them are for the actual cost of facility access at that time of day. And I understand that lots of indirect costs and other hidden costs that are difficult to calculate and have to be spread among all users. And those should certainly be included in the hourly rate that they're charged. But I also think that they should be paying for full staffing if full staffing is not being provided. So there has to be a balance, right? And it sounds like it's a very hard thing to calculate. And like you said, there are lots of ways to slice and dice the numbers. And I think it should be fairly done. And I'm sure that you'll do that.
Chuck, I'll add one comment on that. Thank you, because I can understand that perception. What I'll note is that when you look at the hourly costs of the reservoir, in the peak of the summer, the hourly cost, I believe, goes over $600 an hour. That's when we're at our peak of staffing. Now, certainly there are times in December where the cost of the reservoir is $100 an hour. So $300 an hour does not assume peak season staffing and the full operating costs of the reservoir. I think it's a fair representation and using the BPR accepted definitions of direct costs. So if we were to just charge a user group for direct costs specifically at 5 a.m., the staffing that is on site, then they're not contributing to the operations of the rest of the facility. And in economic term, it just doesn't work, right? So the $300 I think I'm rounding and inappropriately. I believe the 2023 cost is based on the projected budget. And I appreciate the work that the operations team did with finance to show that our projections have been within 2% of spend every year for the last, I think it's 3 or 4 years that's in the analysis was done here. So the only thing since I'm talking, I'm going to say one more thing is that we really hope these user groups consider some of the options and stay out at the reservoir, and doing that during regular operating hours is really the most cost-effective way to do that.
Thank you.
I had a question on the direct costs. So earlier in that part of the memo, we talked about the direct cost per year, and it was 285, I think, an hour, to 328 this year, and then or last year 371 projected this year. Like what? I mean, obviously everything has gotten more expensive, but you think about kind of goods and services being the bigger driver. Like what is the big driver of like $100 increase per hour over a year and a half?
There's a couple of things. I mean, you mentioned goods, so fuel, which is one of the costs of doing business out there. The costs of all of our labor have gone up about 20. Jackson is next to me. I should let you take this. He can speak with much more accuracy.
I'm going to mess up on it, but in 2021, we were paying lifeguards $12 an hour to be at the reservoir. This year, we're going to be starting at $17 an hour. So you are seeing a $5 an hour increase per lifeguard. We do have a lifeguard working at that facility during peak summer months. Lake patrolling license and lifeguards, they do need to know how to drive a boat. Certification, propane costs are going up, fuel costs are going up, janitorial costs are going up. So those are the big things. Do you have like projected costs beyond that? Do you expect this to kind of similar trajectory like the next 2 years? No, obviously, but that's something that's sizable, and obviously that
it's crippling.
Yeah,
it's impacting our entire industry.
Yeah. We develop our budget on an annual basis, so that's something we'll return with the 2024 budget development. Okay.
We build a fund financial in 5 years, and I think typically we assume 3 to 5% cost escalation. The last 2 years, there's a reason it's the front page of Time Magazine last week, and the Colorado Municipal League just reported that in their most recent survey of every single member, inflation is the number one issue that is on their radar for the first time in 40 years. So it's a very big deal. It is atypical, and we're watching it closely.
Great. Are there any other comments? And Allie, I apologize. I was scrolling, and so it was the D and C were on the top of the next page, so I apologize. I didn't mean to cut you off early.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Well, I
We'll work
appreciate the
together
help.
to make sure we covered all it is fine. I have less screens here than I have at my home computer, right? So we're all just doing our best to keep track of it all.
Well, you know what? I'm used to having 3 screens up and I'm working off the one. And so I'm, duck and
We
cover.
feel your pain. We're with you.
Yeah.
We're all, I guess I should have at the beginning of this meeting given the disclosure because, this is our second hybrid meeting and I really appreciate everyone's grace and especially, Rosa who's making sure the technology works and that there's good food here and that there's spaces for everybody, but it takes a village. Darren, thanks for diving in with the tech and thanks to everybody on the computer for being patient with us as we figure this out.
Yeah, thank you. But if there's no other comments and there are no action items, we can move on to the matters from the department. Is that okay now, Ally?
Yes, ma'am.
Back to you. I don't know who you'd like to have present that or if it's going to be you on the 2020.
The 2022 progress report is going to be me, and I'm sorry, I just clicked the link and I think I need to join the Zoom and share my screen. And oh, never mind. Darren's going to do it for me. I just scroll in here. Thanks for your patience, folks. So the link is taking me to the 2021 progress report. I wonder if I have members of the board, I wonder if we could flip. We're gonna do the urban forest strategic plan, if that's okay with you, Regina? Sure. Okay. Look at everybody just being so nimble and flexible. This is Parks and Recreation in action. Thank you.
For sharing, it's teamwork. I'm using Tina's computer.
Amazing.
So while we're waiting, I'll let you know that here in Fairbanks, Alaska, it was -33 this morning. A little brisk.
Oh my goodness.
So did you bike to work?
No, because I had knee surgery 2 months ago, so I'm not biking anywhere.
Oh.
Joke back.
Well,
That's so.
good evening, everyone. I'm
Sorry.
Regina Elsner, Senior Manager for Natural Resources, here to present to you guys the state of the urban forest. Most of the time I would be joined by Kathleen Alexander, our forestry manager, but unfortunately Kathleen is unable to be with us this evening. But you'll see on the screen, we do have Ellen Pribble. She is our forestry field operations supervisor. She is joining us this evening. And she is very knowledgeable if you have any questions once we get through the end of our presentation. So I'm just going to speak really quickly to you about the contents of the state of the urban forest. Scrolling through the story map that you had the link to in your packet. So I hope you all were able to check this out. I believe the last time forestry actually came and presented to PRAB was in early 2021. So many of you probably were not on the board yet. Just to give you a little bit of background, Boulder Forestry is a work group within Parks and Recreation. They are responsible for the maintenance and management of approximately 50,000 public trees throughout the city of Boulder. That includes trees on our parks as well as street right-of-way trees. Between 2016 and 2018, BPR actually worked to develop the first Boulder Urban Forest Strategic Plan, which was then accepted by PRAB in 2018. That really has been our roadmap for ensuring that we have a resilient and sustainable urban canopy well into the future. And the item that we're presenting tonight is the first biannual state of the urban forest. This was an action item called out in the Urban Forest Strategic Plan. The first was due in 2020, obviously delayed because of the pandemic. So we are here this evening to share that with you. If you were able to read the report, Boulder's urban forest is at a tipping point. Our losses from pests such as the emerald ash borer, severe storms and other causes are outpacing our gains from tree growth and plantings. And you can see here in this map, the red is the areas of tree canopy loss since 2013. You can see areas The green is the 2013 canopy, and the red is the loss since 2013. Since its acceptance in 2018, the Urban Forest Strategic Plan has really guided Boulder Forestry's work. The actions and priorities have been broken down into 4 different main categories: plan, manage, protect, and engage. And I apologize, I'm scrolling kind of quickly through this. Photos are not showing up. Despite delays due to budget and staff reductions, we have made great progress on this urban strategic plan since 2018. Some of this progress has included collaboration on data and tools to develop an equitable citywide planting plan, responding to storm emergencies, which I'm very disappointed that photo is not showing up for you. I need to refresh. Let's see. There we go. Maybe. Yes. Responding to storm emergencies. This picture is from the September 2020 snowstorm response and the debris removal, as well as the 2021 Marshall Wind event. We have each year, Boulder Forestry has worked to increase the number of street tree requests that they can fulfill for residents, as well as working and partnering with our nonprofits and other partner organizations, community and corporate partners to support community planting events like this one, the tree giveaway in 2019. Boulder Forestry continues their response to the emerald ash borer infestation. This includes removing infested ash trees, treating significant ash trees throughout the city, and releasing biocontrols to help maintain or lower the EAB population. There's also a public education component of that EAB response. Boulder Forestry is proud to partner with other community organizations to support the health of the urban forest on private property. Specifically, that includes the work of Play Boulder Foundation's Tree Trust and the Tree Tenders program that was initiated in 2018 and 2019. And then also the Cool Boulder campaign that you heard a little bit about. As we move into the next 2 years of the implementation of the Urban Forest Strategic Plan, there are multiple priorities that Boulder Forestry is pursuing. These include things such as diversifying our tree planting plan, as well as working to update our BPR drought plan to ensure that we are in alignment with the city's new drought restrictions and being good stewards of our water resources while also managing and preserving our tree canopy. We are updating our tree inventory in 2023. That provides us a great management tool and asset management tool. We are also seeking additional resources to be able to continue to manage the emerald ash borer and to make significant gains on the backlog associated with tree plantings and tree maintenance throughout the city, as well as expanding the commercial tree program outside of the downtown Boulder corridor. We're also hoping to work to expand the protections of trees throughout the city, both on private and public lands, with updates to the Boulder Revised Code, as well as city policies and our design and construction standards throughout the city. Boulder Forestry will continue to partner with the Play Boulder Foundation Tree Trust, as well as Cool Boulder. Both of those organizations have a focus on the private trees within the city of Boulder. And so how can we engage those private landowners to help manage that portion of our urban canopy? Investments now into Boulder's tree canopy will provide our opportunities to move us closer back to the 16% canopy cover that was identified in the Urban Forest Strategic Plan. And returning to our 2013 canopy levels is going to require enormous collaboration, both with private and public entities,
working together to respond and adapt to our changing climate. And with that quick run through the story map, and I hope you all had some opportunity to read it prior to this, but if you have any questions, Ellen and I are happy to answer any of those. Yes, Elliot?
I have two questions. On the ash borer, this winter has been remarkably cold for sustained periods of time. Do we have any sense of how this winter is going to impact the ash borer population, given that they do respond somewhat to sustained periods of cold?
I will let Ellen take that question.
Hi, yeah, thank you. I don't have the specific number of days and temperature that it needs to be at for a number of days for the emerald ash borer larva to actually decline in population in the tree given temperatures, but it is much more significant than what we've experienced. There's a lot of cities in the Midwest that also ask that same question, but even given, a couple weeks prolonged cold spells, maybe some larva is lost, but not enough to knock back those populations in those Midwest states to a point that we would consider that to be any type of management tool or look to that and say we're going to have less emergence this year. So I would say we have not gotten near that threshold of decline from temperatures alone. But that's a good question.
So you're not banking on the ash borer population going down because of the cold from this winter, basically? No. So one of the interesting issues I personally find with the whole urban forestry or canopy initiative is that there are a lot of climate benefits to having an urban canopy. But we also are facing a pretty severe water shortage in the state of Colorado and in the West at large. And I'm wondering, and obviously it takes water to keep trees alive. How do we balance our urban canopy goals with the need to preserve or conserve water pretty significantly over the next, forever?
That's a great question, Elliot. I think there's been, we work very closely with our climate initiatives colleagues and tackle and kind of think about and wrestle with that same exact question, because water in the arid Southwest, Western United States where we are is a huge issue. And especially we hear a lot about the aridification or desertification of the Colorado River Basin. But trees actually, in a lot of ways, help soils retain water and help us maintain some of that water across our landscape. Trees help to sequester carbon, help cool the areas up to, I think it's close to 8 degrees. It can be up to 8 degrees, which can provide huge benefits in just in that cooling of the area. So I think it's definitely the other thing that we look at pretty extensively, and Ellen can probably speak a little bit more to this than I can, but is really looking at our species selection. And so what are those tree species that we are looking and recommending that not only are planted on public property, but what do we recommend for private landowners to plant on their properties that are drought resistant? There are also trees that are more wildfire resistant. And so how can we, make those best recommendations for trees that are going to survive in the long term? Because it does take quite a bit of water in this urban area and this dry, arid area that we live for them to become established. Ellen, anything you want to add there?
I think the only thing I would add is that there was some research done by Colorado State University researchers that showed that large trees in the canopy, given their large canopy, actually shade grass and other vegetation, which actually reduces water use on the landscape. So there is some argument into retaining those larger trees actually can reduce some of the loss of water per parcel. As well. So just to add to Regina's points, large trees actually do play a great role in some level of water conservation.
Thank you.
I saw Pam and then Jason.
Yeah, I just thought it was really cool, that whole basketball component, the 3-point tree component with the play and the play boulder and tree truss. I was just wondering, how are you planning to do that? Like, there's 144 trees here and 100 something trees. When are they gonna get planted and how is that plan?
I'm not sure I know what.
So Pam's talking about the Threes for Trees. It's a partnership.
Yes,
that the
thank you,
Foundation
thank
is
you.
fostering with CU Boulder. So for both the men's and women's basketball teams, anytime a 3-point shot is made, they will donate a tree. And I had heard Brian Beery is our liaison with the Play Foundation. I'm not sure if he's available. He can share more details, but the gist of it is that sometime this spring, we will partner with some of the athletes themselves and do a major tree planting. And so Regina talked earlier about species selection, and I'm sure you read in the report how important location is. I don't think we have the details completely figured out at this time, Pam, but it's going to be a joint planting with athletes in places that need trees. Ellen, I don't know if you have any other details. I believe
I
it'll
just
also
thought
be in
that was
partnership.
so cool.
Yeah, it's super cool.
I don't have any more details on that particular project.
Okay, well, bravo. I liked it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, actually, I wanted, like, they talked about the kind of trees on private land, versus public land. Obviously, if there's like a way to deal with it on public lands, I don't feel like I have a good sense of like how we deal with it on private lands. And, I know we've probably talked about this before, like, are there kind of mandatory things that people have to do? I mean, if someone says like, hey, you have this big, beautiful tree in your yard, we need to cut it down because it's, I want to try to get a better sense of like the issue, and maybe there are bigger things that can be done, kind of more mandatory requirements or things that are like obviously outside of the jurisdiction of PRAB, but that might just be more than voluntary efforts might be needed, and maybe that already exists. I don't know.
Yeah, so there's right now, a lot of our regulatory requirements on private lands are really associated with development and commercial development or redevelopment of parcels. So it's really related to if a development is coming in through planning and development services, they're removing trees, a certain number have to be replanted, and mitigation costs and things like that is a lot of where our regulations are centered around right now. But as far as your average local private landowner who just has a home in their parcel and the trees on their property, there aren't necessarily protections written within our code. And that's really some of the focus of the Cool Boulder initiative, is to foster the awareness and the education with our community members about how to take care of and manage your trees on your private property, and really foster that sense of stewardship for our urban canopy, and start there as opposed to starting on the regulatory side and really wanting to engage with the community to manage the private canopy.
Has it been effective?
I mean, Cool Boulder has really only launched since about 2020 or so. So it's still growing. But there are a lot of very active community members that are involved with the Cool Boulder initiative, as well as the tree tenders. The tree tenders were another great program that we started in 2018 and 2019 that were unfortunately curtailed in 2020. But again, it's built on the model of like the Master Gardeners program, of really creating community members that are experts in tree care that can go to their neighbors and their communities and say, hey, can I help you take care of your trees? So it's definitely a growth point and something we want to continue to foster.
I'll just add that the carrot approach is lovely, and the urban forest strategic plan it has the plan, manage, protect. Under the protect category is an initiative that isn't in our work plan this year, but to explore how you might enhance private tree protection through code and regulations. It's not on our work plan, but it's something there's waxing and waning interest in it. For some neighbors, the urban canopy benefits us all, but people get to choose what happens on their private property, right? So it's a very tricky conversation, but one that is included in the urban forest strategic plan. Ellen, did you want to add anything on that?
No, I thought you worded that well.
You did very well.
So the Boulder's forestry program seems resource constrained. We have only 7 employees and lots to do. So the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act included $1.5 billion for the Forest Service, Community and Urban Forestry Program or something like that. Are there any efforts to tap into those funds? It seems like that could be a tremendous resource for people and trees and everything else you need.
Chuck, absolutely, yes. We are working very closely with our colleagues over in Climate Initiatives that worked closely with the State Forest Service and their grant applications for some of that federal funding. And so we are working very closely with them. Boulder Forestry is part of what's called the consortium. I'm completely blanking on the name now. There are a couple of different initiatives that Boulder Forestry is participating in, both regionally on the Front Range, but also across the country with like cities like Albuquerque and Philadelphia and others, about how we can kind of create projects and create efforts to kind of access some of that federal funding that was included in the Inflation Reduction Act. So that is absolutely opportunities that we are looking into.
Thanks. It seems like investing some staff time in that might pay some longer term dividends. So,
yeah, absolutely. That is on our 23 work plan.
Really quickly, sorry to interrupt. Mary has been disabled as a panelist. Can someone, Rosa, can you try to reinstate her, please? Thank you. While Rose is doing that, I don't know if I cut somebody. Oh, there she is. Okay, I see her again. I think she had something to say.
I don't at this particular moment, but it was frustrating to not be able to unmute. So hello, thank you.
Okay, great. Sorry about that, Mary. And then we can go on. I don't know if I cut somebody off, so I apologize.
I don't see any other hands in the room.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Did we want to go back to Allie to the 2022, or do you feel like you've got your thing up? I see.
Yeah, we're ready. And thanks again to the flexibility of all of our teammates sharing computers and everyone rolling with us. So the 2022 progress report, I'm not going to present it screen by screen. Hopefully the link worked for you all, and if not, I've reshared it. For the PRAB members, so that we've done a progress report every year since 2015, and after following the acceptance of the 2014 Parks and Recreation Master Plan. This year's has a real marked improvement in that we're including the KPIs, the key performance indicators that were identified with the 2022 plan. And so as we load up, I'm going to skip reading to you the letter from the director and the grotesque large photo of me that I'm trying to make. So that's okay. It's okay. The screen sharing is not working for us. See, Rosa, everything was perfect for the first hybrid meeting that they thought that we needed to have a little more. There we go. There we go. Okay. All right. Can I just point out these pictures are so incredible. Those two young women in the middle are incredible members of our expanding camps team, and they do such a phenomenal job of providing services to kids and to kids with disabilities, and they make me so proud. So we'll skip the letter from the director. I want to point out this everyday excellence section. We always include this because we want to remind people, regardless of whatever incredible accomplishments may happen in a given year because of projects or new programs, that 80 to 85% of what we do is just operating Boulder's parks and recreation systems. So we have the 3 recreation center, 1,860 acres of parkland. There's some great stats here on just the trees that we take care of, the paths that we take care of, how many rounds of golf we facilitate. These are the numbers of which I am most proud, because this is the work that our team does day in and day out. And then the rest of the report is organized around the key themes of the master plan. And I'll pause here and show you that in each section, there's some of the key performance indicators showing you just year over year trends for context in our facilities, look at that growth, recreation facility contacts. That's incredible. It shows you that people are getting more comfortable working out inside and that our team has programs and services available to them, which is really exciting. Financial aid provided, that number grew substantially, even though we still have limited funding from the Health Equity Fund. Trees planted, we are doing our best to restore resources there. Chuck just asked a comment about resources, and I'll point out that both financial aid and tree plantings are areas where we are have submitted requests for additional funding as part of the library reallocation. So the board had asked how Parks and Recreation was making requests. Well, they're all straight from the master plan and the areas that have already been identified as funding gaps. So if I keep scrolling down, actually, I'm just gonna, you all got the summary of our to-do list. So I'm not in the January PrAB meeting, so I won't share that with you. We're sharing this whole report with you for your awareness. I know you often have questions about the work happening in the department. There are some incredible successes in here. We also outlined the challenges. And I just hope, I would love you to spend 15 minutes reviewing this report so that you know what we're proud of in 2022. It finishes with our 23 to-do list, but again, you all got an overview of that. You got an overview of that in the January meeting when we shared our action plan. The next item in the matters from the department is closely tied to this, and it's every year we also tend to report out very specifically on financial aid. And so that next item gives you even more detail. I want to call out that the subsidy provided for facility entry and the entries themselves grew by 70% in 2022. And I believe that overall financial aid visitation continues to be about 10% of our visitation. Higher than that, Jackson saying thank you for
6%.
14, thank you. And we know that about 15% of the community qualifies for our financial aid as the program is designed today. And so that we're at 14%, that's a really good indicator that we are doing everything we can to be accessible. There's one other item I wanted to call out here, again, as we're talking about funding. In the master plan, we call out a funding gap for financial aid. And so these numbers here represent, in the 23 next steps, the requests we are making to strengthen financial aid in Parks and Recreation. $250,000 would more sustainably fund the existing program. $90,000 would provide ongoing and stable funding for Requity. So Requity is our 100% free access to Parks and Recreation facilities. It relies on a grant from the Health Equity Fund that we have to apply for every year. And then we've also asked for $250,000. We would love to implement a sliding scale access. So for folks who make $1 more, or $10,000 more than the income limits, that they could qualify for some support. We know that we have that cliff effect in our programs. So I'll pause for questions on any of that. Elliot.
I just want to say that going through this annual report, or progress report, it's really well done. The graphics are great. The kind of comparisons between 2021 and 2022 make it very clear how we've progressed over year. And it's really well done.
Our team did that in-house. So I appreciate your comments. And I don't know if Jonathan Thornton is listening. He's our communications specialist who's embedded with the Parks and Recreation Department. He folks on our marketing team. And in fact, one of our teammates who has an interest in marketing also helped with some of the story mapping for the annual report and the urban forest strategic plan, or the state of the forest report. We need a good name for that. Jason.
Yeah, second on the report, it looks great. Really impressive to see all that, especially that first page of all the squares, all the different things that have been accomplished. On the sliding scale, I was really glad to see that. We've talked about that before. Do we have a sense of spreading out the kind of eligibility levels, like how many more people might be served or might receive financial aid? I know it's hard to study something implement yet, but if you what's the threshold now? Is it like 55,000 or 60,000?
For a family of 4, for an individual, it's much less.
For a family, but if you sliding scale and you go to 75,000 or something, like how many more
I know we got some numbers, so our colleagues in Housing and Human Services have that data about income distribution across the community, and I know we looked at it when we were building this budget request, but I don't remember it off that, we could bring that back to you.
So the second question was just about implementation. I know when we've talked about this before, it's been an issue of, well, how are we gonna verify, income levels, and this is really like beyond our scope. How does that like, would this funding, be used to kind of set up a verification system, or how would that work? That's the question, maybe.
I don't know if you have thoughts off the top of your head. My take on it, the way we do it now is that we use the no wrong door, right? So for example, if you have qualified for low income housing with Boulder Housing Partners, you qualify for equity, and we know that they're doing a very rigorous job of checking income levels. And so to expand the program, I would assume that we would look to community partners who could provide a similar level of partnership, but that's an assumption. We haven't gotten that far.
And my questions are based on kind of wanting to root out people that it's more than wanting to expand access. And
Yeah.
let's talk about this issue of, like you said, if you make $1 more than threshold, you're kind of out of luck.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that fall in that middle that, Mary and others have talked about, kind of the middle class and, still needing some level of assistance. So the questions come from that, not a.
Yeah, no, I hear you. What I know to be true is that, again, since 2014, when we've had this laser focus on access, that we have done a lot of work to make sure, even when we were verifying income in-house, we reduced the paperwork, I think, from 10 pages to 2. It's available in multiple languages. It's available at the recreation centers, and the proof of income, I believe we had continued to streamline until we went to this method where it was the no wrong door. And if you qualify for Medicaid, BHP, Boulder's food tax credit, that's another way, is that and there's a fourth one that I'm not remembering.
If you're on unemployment.
Thank you. You're raising great questions, Jason, and I'm pretty sure we're taking notes. And so as we build the program, that's what the hope is with the council study session in April, is that we can get an indicator of the political, their leanings, so that we're not, the budget will be approved in October. It would be really nice to have a better runway to develop some of these things if they do fund new programs. That's an entirely new program, right?
Thank you.
All right, if there aren't any other questions, our next matter from the department, I am so honored to present to you senior landscape architect Darren Wagner, who joined our team on Halloween. And actually, Mark, I don't know if you were going to introduce this. We didn't talk about it. Okay, great. Thrilled. It is a unique opportunity to get to develop a park. And I will call out that we are calling it the Park on Violet. It is not our intention that this park be called Violet Park. For board members who've been around for more than a year, we did some really great work with the University of Colorado on the importance of park names and the history and the distribution of park names in Boulder. And we know there's stories, great Boulder stories, that our park names aren't telling. So my hope is that with the community, we can identify a name for this park that tells a story that maybe isn't being told right now. So with that, I'll let Darren, the intent of this item tonight is to let you know the project plan and timeline and how we hope to shape it. You all had some great conversations about this project at your December retreat. And I think tonight's not December, November, October, fourth quarter. You had a retreat. You had some great conversations about this park. I think tonight's presentation will answer some of those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, Madam Chair, thank you for having me. Really glad to be presenting to you for the first time tonight. So if there are additional questions that aren't answered, then certainly this is an opportunity to talk about those. So just in terms of our outline for tonight, the hope is that you already know the site, but we're going to give you just a very introductory overview of the site, as well as some of the context that has been building over the years regarding the planning and initial engagement that has happened in the vicinity of the area, and then give you an idea of how we're designing our own project approach as it relates to both design and engagement based on that context, and give you a sense of next steps from there. We're just in the final stages now of scoping this project and really getting excited about launching it officially. So this is this is the opportunity to share with you our thinking before we quote unquote go public. So really appreciate in advance any thoughts and questions you have on that. So as Ali said, it is unnamed at this point. It is an 8-acre site in North Boulder. And so just by way of introducing the site even to anyone listening online or otherwise who might not know the location, we're looking at an 8-acre area along Violet Avenue between Broadway and 36 there. And it is by definition, it has been classified as a neighborhood park, which means that it is meant to serve a smaller shed, a smaller part of the city. And as we, I'll talk a little bit about this, but in particular, we know that the neighbors to the north in one of Boulder's largest manufactured home communities, Boulder Meadows, it'll largely be a neighborhood park for those residents, as well as some of the others living nearby. But as we look at the sort of natural setting that this falls within and try and situate ourselves within that context, we also know that to the northeast and to the east, that we're not far from native grasslands and working landscapes. They're about, in this part of the city, there are about 3,000 acres of working landscapes that are managed by a different part of the city. And that does include a localized organic farm for local production and use. It's not far to the west from our existing Foothills Community Park. And so, it sort of starts to lay out this spectrum of where this falls in terms of the different types of natural amenities that the city as a whole provides to the public. And then further beyond Foothills Community Park is that city open space. And so you start to see this sort of cross-section of agricultural working landscapes, a neighborhood park, which is meant to serve a local audience, but then having access to these larger amenities like the larger community park and the larger open spaces beyond that. And so it's really nice to think about how, as we start engaging with the community, how can we tie these things together and provide access and be a part of providing access to the outdoors along with the rest of the city. What also transects the site and ties a lot of these things together is 4 Mile Canyon Creek. So this is a local watershed of about 10 square miles. It is an important amenity that in terms of wildlife movement, it serves bears, deer, bobcat, others that have been recorded in the area as, being a waterway. It naturally facilitates that kind of wildlife movement and brings with it a lot of natural values. And it also brings flood risk. So we know back in 2013 that this area was significantly inundated, and including quite a bit of sedimentation that was left behind. And having heard comments that it looked like Boulder's new beach after the last flood. So we're bringing a lot of context and awareness about what is going to be needed on this site as we design our approach. And then as we look at our human neighbors, not just our natural context, but again, I mentioned the manufactured home community to the north. There are about 638 sites in that community alone. And to the west of Broadway, there are another 68 sites in Ponderosa Mobile Home Community. We are, starting to do some analysis in terms of what age ranges as it relates to children and youth are kind of our target audience, so to speak. And just from some initial analysis, we start to look at things like having Crestview Elementary only a block away. We have 7 licensed childcare facilities within a half mile of this area. So we start to think that maybe this is an earlier childhood elementary school age audience, but we don't know that. We're going to continue to do some analysis and engagement to better understand the demographics and the interests and the needs. And certainly throughout all of that, we're looking at something that appeals to all ages. We also know we have the Silver Sage community and further in North Boulder that appeals to older adults. So looking at providing accessibility in all the ways that we can. It's also immediately adjacent to the future North Boulder Branch Library. So the groundbreaking for that is tentatively scheduled for April now. It got pushed back for a couple of reasons, but we've been working really closely with that team, both in terms of understanding the engagement and the analysis that they've done to date, because that serves us really well in terms of really building on the relationships that they've established over time with the community and understanding what they're looking for, as well as then thinking about the future design of our park as it relates to theirs, because they are doing quite a bit of work on their outdoor spaces. And if you haven't seen some designs, you'll see that there's even a slide that takes you from the inside to the outside. And they're looking at outdoor culinary spaces and learning gardens and nature play in such a way that we want to make sure we tie in with that and that it's a cohesive experience between both sites. So the other component to this area is that in addition to the library, it's also situated within the North Boulder Arts District, which is a somewhat newly established entity, but as things start to come online, like a new campus for the Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art and more programming around that, it's really becoming more apparent how lively that scene is in that area. And we also, as I mentioned, with the flood components are in need of having to really figure out with our friends in the utilities department how we're going to address the floodplain needs that have already been identified in some floodplain planning that has been done and approved in years past. Things like drop structures and underpass improvements, bank stabilization, all of those things we're trying to really understand how we can integrate those into the park design process. We're also really lucky that there's been a lot of youth engagement as part of the North Boulder Branch Library process. And even our friends at Boulder Journey School of their own accord decided to do this amazing project where they took their preschoolers out on site and developed a report in terms of what their youngsters, want to see and how they experience the site. So we've got a lot of great things to build on there. We obviously have the Parks and Recreation Department plan, a lot of really important key themes in there that we're going to, make sure that we bring through into this project, whether it's youth engagement and activities and an activity theme or the relationship building theme, community health and wellness. A lot of components there will be pulling through. And then we also, as you've heard reference to a lot, we have our design standards manual. And we're really trying to make sure that as we apply these things, that we're doing it in light of what kinds of activities is the community looking for in this site particularly. So we want to pull data where we have it and then build on that and engagement to understand that better. So as we build that interdisciplinary approach as it relates to the design components and looking out across just the remainder of this year, we're trying to see this as kind of the first phase of this effort. In other words, we really need to continue to deepen our understanding of the site and the immediate environment and run that through sort of an initial feasibility assessment to make sure from the floodplain standpoint, for example, that we're exploring all of the technical options that we have. And really also trying to understand all the components that are really going to make this a lively space. So we have partners, for example, in the Transportation and Mobility Department, who will help us look at the multimodal connections to and from the park and how, for example, we can support connections up into open space. So really trying to get all that on the table. And then in the third quarter of this year, moving into the development of some site design options. So looking at the full 8 acres. What are the spatial arrangements that we could consider in terms of future development and programming? And I want to stress that programming piece too. So as we start engaging the community and doing this assessment, we really want this to be a people first process where we're again saying, what does the community want to be doing on this site? And then therefore, how can the facilities and the design support that? We're going to also need to be developing cost estimates. This will in third quarter be our first attempt at putting, legitimate cost estimates together, and then we'll advance those as we move through the process when we have more information. And so in the fourth quarter, we're hoping to end the year with the preferred alternative that we would then bring back to the PRAB to consider. And then starting to look at more detailed sort of pods or locations within the site, specific to the character of the facilities or the programming that we're looking at. And it may be at that point too, especially once we have updated cost estimates, that we might have to explore potential phasing, especially as we think about the floodplain components. So that's kind of the sketch for the end through the rest of this year. We're also looking at piloting a system that has been in operation for a little less than 10 years. called Sustainable Sites, and it's a certification system somewhat similar to LEED that some of you may know as it relates to the built environment, vertical construction. This one is geared more towards landscape projects and parks projects, and it'll be our first attempt for the city to be piloting that effort here. And we're really excited in terms of how that's going to help us frame conversations and really address some of these larger issues you've even heard about tonight, you know, as it relates to tree canopy and drought and all of those components we need to keep in mind. As we layer in the engagement into the process, we want to really try and center the marginalized voices from the beginning in this process. And some of this ties back even to the master plan themes around the relationship building, cultural equity, where we know that, for example, in the neighborhood to the north, we have a substantial population that is either monolingual in Spanish or Nepalese or bilingual in one or both languages. So we want to use the opportunity in the next few months to deepen our relationships with that community. And we're going to be doing that through a number of methods, and we list those in the memo. But as to reiterate, you know, we're working with Growing Up Boulder to deepen our engagement around youth based on what we've already done so far. We're also going to be hiring 2 paid community connectors who have meaningful relationships with that community. They don't necessarily have to live there, but if they have meaningful connections that they can leverage to help us reach that audience, then we're looking for their help in honestly refining our approach to engagement and then also conducting the engagement. We'll also be working with members of the community who are experiencing disabilities and looking for ways to deepen our understanding around how this park can serve them as well. And then again, we'll be moving into, okay, let's get the ideas out on the table and start identifying preferences for how we might activate the site. We really see this engagement not just as a transactional thing where it's like, tell us what to think, and then thanks, we'll take your ideas and see you in a year. It's more starting even now in thinking about how we're going to activate the site and building those relationships that people have with the land itself. And then as we move towards the end of the year, making sure that our designs are in alignment with the community values that we've heard to date. And really throughout all of this, as Ellie mentioned earlier, we hope to be gleaning a lot of stories and having just real meaningful conversations with people to understand ideas for naming the park even, and using this opportunity to get those on the table. One thing I just want to point out briefly is that, as all of us probably know, somewhere in this engagement timeline, it is going to be the 10-year anniversary of the 2013 flood. So we're keeping that in mind as we're designing our activities and the ways we hope to talk to the community. So next steps, we're about finished with this project scoping, and then we'll issue an RFP and bring on some design consultants that are going to help us move this forward. And also looking at hiring those community connectors that I just mentioned. That is a posting that's actually open right now. So you know, encourage if you know anyone with meaningful connections to that community, let me know. I can make sure you have that that posting. They're going to help us finalize the engagement plan. And then we'll be launching engagement and that site analysis component shortly thereafter. So these are the questions that we had put in the memo and that can help frame discussion tonight. But I also just want to say thank you again for the opportunity to present this to you, and open to really any questions or feedback that you have at this point.
Can you clarify, when are you going to develop a name?
Through the engagement process. So we also have, as a department, a naming policy that sort of has to go through its own natural steps, but we're hoping that the storytelling will get some ideas out on the table. And if we can, by the end of the year, have some initial prioritized ideas on the table, that'd be terrific. Yeah.
And in that naming process, is it really open, or are you thinking to reflect a historical story or the current population that's going to be accessing the park?
We have not gotten that far. So if you have any thoughts or guidance, I'd welcome that, certainly.
And I'm sorry if you said this, the PRAB does have approval over park names. So whatever it is, it will come to you for approval. That's what's spelled out in the formal park naming policy.
When do you anticipate that'll be before us?
The name itself. it really depends on what happens, right? And I say this, so I could off the top of my head name several different avenues. When Canyon Point Park was renamed in honor of Emma Gomez Martinez, there were community members who stewarded that process. So through this engagement, it could be that a group of community members organizes and advocates for a park name and leads the process. It could be that it's led through us and through the park. But I would imagine sometime in the next year, right? I mean, it's really, we don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Because it really will depend. I mean, this will be one of, in that first window of engagement, we'll want to unearth and open this topic with the community. Yeah, I just, that's, your question is so fascinating because it's like, who knows what's going to happen, right? It's one of those things where we truly are, if you think of our engagement spectrum, this is, it's after consult, we are involved, the community gets to decide, right? I mean, with your approval. And so we're okay with whatever the outcome is, knowing that you will approve it. And so if you think of that whole spectrum of community engagement, for park naming, we're way over here.
Parking McPark Base.
Did you say park?
Parking McPark Base, you know.
Got it, names.
Generally, the one it done by the end of the schematic design process, so as we get into CDs, that's when we can.
Thank you. That's a very helpful comment.
Yes.
Good point.
Right.
Thank you
for that.
Okay.
Right. I'm gonna track when hands went up. I don't know if anybody else did, but,
Chuck was first.
okay.
Thank you for the great presentation. I didn't catch who was giving the presentation because my internet's cutting in and out. So sorry, who?
Oh, quite all right. I'm sorry. I'm Darren Wagner. I am somewhat new to the department. So this is the first time I've been in front of the PRAB. Nice to meet you, Chuck.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, great presentation, Darren.
Thank you.
Hopefully I'm not going to cut in and out as I speak. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thanks. Things are very intermittent on my end. So I've got, you asked about two of the key issues, and I've got two key issues. One is, I think you're going to get a lot of pushback from the community about the wildlife corridor nature of the park. And people are used to deer coming down through the park grounds and along the creek. And I think they'll be upset when this open landscape is developed. And I think you need to think about the wildlife corridor aspects of the site. And that's an important role that it does play. Second thing is this is a very challenging site in terms of access, in particular multimodal access. So Violet is a very intimidating street to cross, especially for kids. It's semi-rural in nature. It's got narrow shoulders, no sidewalks, no curbs, a very narrow bridge on the east end of the park along Violet going over 4 Mile Creek, and no access from the mobile home park directly to the park. So I think there's going to be a very big role for transportation to play here. And I don't know who's going to pay for all this, but that street needs complete redevelopment. And putting a park there is going to be attracting kids on bikes and walking in a very dangerous environment. So you need to think very carefully about that.
Chuck, I appreciate that. We do, as I mentioned, have staff from transportation and mobility who are engaged in the project. And some of the final scoping that we're doing is to confirm what their role and potential funding contributions may be. We are trying to, as I mentioned, to sort of package this in a holistic way. For example, that underpass and bridge that are over Violet, that's also a significant pinch point for the floodplain. So it would serve both the floodplain and transportation objectives to improve that. It's not currently on transportation's work plan, so we're looking at ways we may be able to at least pursue design for that up front in a collaborative way and then phase that moving forward. We're not quite sure how that'll look, but in a similar light, we're looking for additional grant funding as we go. So we're hoping to assemble that complete approach here soon.
Okay, that's great. And I think a link directly to the mobile home park, if possible, over the creek would be really valuable. Like I think Apple Tree Court or something like that is a cul-de-sac street.
That's right. Yeah.
Potential for bridging across over to the.
Yeah, thanks for that too. So the library is pursuing a pedestrian connection that's gonna come around and terminate on the northwest corner of the park site, on their land, but near our site. So that'll be one opportunity on the western side to explore the potential for maybe something low profile in terms of crossing the creek there, whether it's stepping stones or otherwise, so that anyone accessing the library from the western side could also then access the park. And then on the eastern side, we have our property boundary goes up to about halfway through that. I think it's Applewood, if I'm not mistaken, to that cul-de-sac. So we're also going to be looking at hopefully a bridge across there to provide access from the western side of that community.
Super, that'll be very important to those communities. Thanks.
Should I go ahead?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Did you not see my hand probably?
No,
Oh,
I had a question
hiding
as
in the-
well.
Oh, okay. Hi, Darren.
Hi, Mary.
Second to last time here, but you probably know that we've had a lot of focus in the last 2 years on inclusion and equity. I think it's important almost ASAP to include some Native Americans with blessings and insights, you know, from their perspective, given that this was their land before other people moved here a couple hundred years ago. Thanks.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you for that, Mary. And Ali, I'll let you speak to this more. I would say just initially that the city has a formal tribal consultation process in the government to government sovereign nation realm. And they are working on a set of priority projects where they're looking at improvements in a targeted way with tribal members. At this time, this project is not one of the projects being pursued in that formal consultation setting. But Ali, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
I think the only thing I would add, and I'll to put a fine point on that, there are properties that are identified where the tribal consultations happen, I believe, twice a year, where I'm gonna try and summarize what is a complicated thing. There are many, many, many tribes who called the Boulder Valley home because the Native Americans, and especially in this area, they were nomadic and they didn't own property. And so the formal relations we have are with many tribes, and they happen formally twice a year. And so their time is finite. And so formally, to Darren's point, this project is not on the list. Their efforts this year are focused on an OSMP property called the Poor Farm. It's the site of Fort Chambers, which is where the people who trained and committed the Sand Creek, the people who trained for and then committed the Sand Creek massacre. And so they're talking about what's the right way to honor that history at that site. So that's their priority this year. Now, that doesn't mean that the connections and precedent relationships happening can't help inform this project. And so that is something that Darren and I can follow up on offline to talk about what are ways that we can make sure Native American voices are represented in the community engagement. And there's also just share that there's some leading practices that we look to as we design, as we'll design the park. Canada, for example, is doing a really good job of telling the stories of what they call the First Nations in their park design and development. So that was a whole lot of words because it's a really complicated topic. But Mary, we definitely, if we won't be including this in formal consultation, we'll make sure, if you remember in the master plan, we did micro engagements. I think for this park, some micro engagements would be appropriate with some of these underrepresented voices.
Well, given that there are so many animals that use that corridor, I'm just going to push back and say I think they need to be a little more involved than cursory and sideline conversations or micro engagements. My great-great-grandma was Native American, so I feel this pull that they need to be able to represent this almost last parcel in Boulder in some way, even if not in a huge speaking voice, but to leave it to little comments or a little sign where they get to talk about, it seems dismissive to me to have them involved on the side. So Thanks.
I'd like to translate the term micro. It doesn't mean many or small, and I can see how that perception is given. It means targeted and focused in the world of engagement. And so if you, I'll use the master plan example again, we did targeted and focused outreach with youth, with older adults, with other. So thanks for letting me clarify. By saying micro engagement, it's not that it would be cursory or on the side.
Will there, I guess, to that end then, because I guess I don't feel satisfied, is there a way that going forward in our city that they will be involved in any and everything that we can get them involved in? They being Native American peoples?
Pam or Mary, I think the most appropriate way to follow up to make sure I'm speaking accurately would be to talk to the my teammates in the city manager's office that are coordinating the tribal relations. My understanding is they're not an interest in being involved in everything and every decision that happens. And so it's about being thoughtful about coordination where it matters to them. So let me get some more information and report back to you.
That would be great. Thank you.
So Ally, my question is on the same kind of topic, but not with this park. You had mentioned that all of the park names come through the PRAB. I don't remember, I mean, I remember a conversation about the park near my house, the People's Park, and it's changing name, but I don't remember that coming to the PRAB for a vote, did it? Or is that different because it's not a new park? It was just changing names.
Well, that's an open space property. And so that was facilitated through the Open Space Board of Trustees. The last park name that came to this board was Bill Bauer Park in 2015, when that park was developed. Yeah, so it's not often that park naming happens.
Okay, thank you. I thought I've been here, so I thought maybe I missed it. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I wanted to know more about the community connectors. Are you looking for one Nepalese and one Spanish speaker?
In an ideal setting, that would be wonderful. We are hiring two, and we're doing this in partnership with our citywide engagement and communications team. They are the ones who've been developing this program and building the relationships and so on. And so that is our hope. We know that it's a little more difficult right now to engage the Nepalese community, but we're really hopeful, and they have some relationships with an existing community connector who has been really involved in city process to date, who is bilingual in Nepalese and English, and not sure if he'll be available for this process, but they've engaged him to try and say, is there any way that you could sort of build the capacity among your neighbors and friends within that community to see if they'd be interested in participating?
So for more information, we would ask that team. Brenda and Ryan, or?
Yeah, Ryan and Angela. Yeah, absolutely. And I certainly, the posting is up online also. So if we have a means for following back up with the board, I could send that or however you request.
You say the posting is online
for the community connectors.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And did you also mention something about people with disabilities? Did I hear that right? Can you tell me a little bit more of how or with what groups you're engaging to?
Sure, absolutely. I'm actually going to let Mark answer that question. He's got some great ideas.
No, we're just chatting about it today. It's not like a typical nonprofit in folder that hits all disability categories, as it were. So we talked about obviously looking at youth, looking at aging population, places like ARC, plus you got places like Peak nonprofit that are getting involved. So I think as we come back with the engagement plan, we'll be doing a better job of describing what that looks like. And as Ali pointed out, that term we use, micro engagements, is to have focused engagement with that section of the community. So if you have any suggestions, we're really open to.
Yeah.
Just wondering if you have been in touch with the intellectual and developmental disabilities group.
Is that is that nonprofit related or school related?
No, that's the IDD from Boulder County.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And the ones that you mentioned were Peak nonprofit. Is that what you said? And what was the other one?
What's that? ARC, the other one. Yeah.
We also have in the past worked with the Center for People with Disabilities. They have more of a presence in Denver, but still somewhere here.
And actually, Topher Down and over at Open Space, and I help them out a bit with this, running monthly, it's called a Roll and Stroll. We've got about 60 members of that. So that's folks from the community who can directly get in touch with. That's quite nice because that's got that direct connection.
Yeah. Ally just made an excellent point. We also have participants in our Expand program and the staff and caregivers that support them. So as I said, we're building our engagement plan, as Mark said, so this is great. May I ask what the name of that group was that you just mentioned, so I get that?
I'm sure, and I can also email it. It's the Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board.
Thank you.
Sure. Boulder County.
Okay.
Have you thought about or reached out to the high schools that have kids, from that neighborhood? I was at an event at our elementary school with the Youth Equity Council, UVSD. They're amazing. And it just, brought to mind how brilliant and, high school students are so smart and they have time and they have reasons to engage above and beyond. I just think that's a whole population that could be engaged for something like this and they would really like to do it.
Yes, yeah. I have a very soft spot for youth engagement. I will say too that we have our program, the Youth Services Initiative, that is active in that neighborhood, both in terms of the Rec on Wheels program and in working with teens and younger audiences that live there also. So we've talked to them about how we can engage with those groups that they already have relationships with and really get their thoughts. Growing Up Boulder is going to help us with that. Yeah.
I think language would be less of an issue. And, just a perspective and energy that they would bring would be really great.
Yeah. And then I should also say that the Housing and Human Services Department has a Youth Opportunities Program internship that they're getting back up and running this year. It's fully paid, it's no cost to us. So through that, we're going to be hiring at least one high school intern to help us on this project, as well as others too. Other questions? Thank you so much again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we're not seeing any other hands virtually or physically. Thank you all. That was very helpful feedback. We really appreciate it. We will be coming back to you on this part because you saw on the engagement plan, you'll be coming back to you several times on this, and we might come back a little sooner just to fill in some of the gaps based on your questions tonight, just to give you an update in the consent agenda.
All right. Are we moving on to the recreation center fees?
We're gonna go next, I believe, is to the historic places plan. Yep, and
I
so
thought that one first. Sorry about that.
yep, so Tina Briggs is gonna provide that update for you all.
Hello, I'm Tina Briggs, landscape architect of Parks and Recreation. I'm going to share my screen here and I got the right one. All right. Okay, I have the wrong one up. Let me try that again.
Going twice today.
There we go, that was correct. Okay, so the Historic Places Plan, we've been working on this for several years, as some of you may know, and some of you are probably really just seeing the consent agenda and short pieces. We're kind of rounding finally to the final few months of this. But I wanted to share with you some of the heavier technical pieces and just make you aware of where they can be found, what's actually in them, and if you want to read in them more depth, you certainly can. I know it's already late tonight, so we won't go too in depth in all the properties, but I want to let you know what's there, and then we can talk about what the next steps are and when I'll be coming back to see you guys again with more of a draft and what we'll be talking about moving forward. So really, so we'll start with the project overview. What is it? The process and outreach of how we got where we are today, looking at the methodology of the plan, and then outlining the 10 resources that we have. You might hear us say 12, because we've actually grouped the train resources together. So we have three train resources. And because the direction is so similar in all of them, we kind of put them all into a chapter together. So what we'll kind of look at today is the historic context and condition assessments and what's involved in that. And then the recommended actions, we're still doing some work on those. So that is really what we're going to refine over the next month. And then we'll see you again in 2 months with that more outlined and solid. All right, so the HIP is really this technical document, right? And we know some of the properties we have a ton of information on, and some of them we have less information on. So for example, Columbia Cemetery has an entire book written on it. This document isn't intended to contain all of that. It's not all the anecdotal stories. It's not some of the cool history, right? This is really just intended to give each property that same level of documentation. And then the documentation is footnoted. So if we want to dig in and do more information, like dig in and find more information, the footnotes are all going to be there. What we've seen in the past is we don't know what we don't know. So you don't even know what you could be looking for. So that's kind of one of the benefits too of looking further. It really is a planning document. So we're looking at each property and then it supports the upcoming projects. So we're looking at each property and what needs to happen over the 5 to 10 years. In the past with our historic properties, we've been a little bit more reactive than we'd like to be. I'd like to see us move more into that proactive, where we're actually planning this out and it's going to follow into our CIP program and our budget accordingly. And then prioritize within all of the other things that we have in Parks and Recreations we're thinking about. One of the other pieces we're still working on refining and that we might talk about tonight, if there's time or interest, is looking at communication and education of volunteers. So I think really to take this plan, we have the planning document piece of it, but then really getting our community involved in it, I think is going to be a key piece to that. So how do we educate them? How do we have them come in and help us? And then there's even the potential of fundraising, right? So the next step is it's a little bit cut off. Let me make this. This is pretty tiny to see, but in the memo, there actually is a link to a PDF if you click on it. And really, this is just showing sort of the 5 steps that we have. Now you can see COVID is in there, so there's a bit of a long gap in one of those. We also had some staffing changes too, where we had to kind of readjust and pull our consultants back in to do some of the work that the incumbent staff was going to do. So you'll see as we kind of walk through this, the railroad resources in Columbia Cemetery have kind of trailed behind the rest of the project, but we're catching them up now. So we started with research, right? And then we did inventory assessments and then we did condition assessments. We're working on treatment recommendations and then bundling all that up together. There is a timeline of where we engage the public. So for each individual property, we built a draft and then we met with staff and stakeholders. And then we have 8 community members who have stayed with us through this whole process and given detailed information. Been part of the process. They're reviewing drafts right now. And then alongside of that, we actually did some public engagement. Early on with the master plan, we kicked them off together. We did a scavenger hunt not too long ago, and then a public meeting in January. Along the lines, we've also participated in things that our community partners were hosting. So they did a Frederick Law Olmsted talk, so we participated in that. And then recently, the Saving Places Conference was here in Boulder. And so we also were able to participate and do tours of the area right around where the conference was happening. And then obviously like PRAB has been engaged throughout the process as well as the landmarks, so we're keeping them in touch. The historic preservation staff under our planning and development services has also been part of the process. One of the next steps too, as I was talking about us building the treatment recommendations through the next year, is we'll sit down with them for kind of a 2-hour workshop where we just really make sure they're also invested in it, so that when we do go to back to private landmarks board with those, you know that they're really been looked at closely, and then there's alignment between the staff and hopefully the boards. Okay. Sorry, I can't show the view and my notes at the same time, so. Here's just a list of the resources that we're talking about. We thought it was kind of fun fact that the average age of them is 123 years old, which is pretty impressive. Okay, so here's what's going to be in the project. So each property has its own chapter other than the trains, which are grouped together. So the historic context really just tells you about the property, shows you where the boundary is, what the history of the property is, and then the significance. And by the significance, it's kind of like what makes that property so special. The condition assessments kind of go into just actually evaluating the resource in particular. So it might be on the house, it might be the siding and the driveway and the windows. But it's also defining a little bit about what the integrity of individual pieces are. So the Pearl Street Mall is probably the most complicated one. It does have a long history, but it goes into even like what's significant and what's significant about it, right? So for example, we talked about trees tonight, so we use that as an example. We know that the trees have historic significance. So what does that mean? That actually means not the actual tree is significant, but it is the placement of the tree and the sort of the canopy of the tree, whether it's deciduous, evergreen, or whether, and large canopy. It does then allow for room as our climate changes, finding the right trees that have that same integrity, and the spacing of the trees is what matters. So it kind of goes into that level of detail on, for example, Pearl Street, right? We can talk about bollards and is it the color of the paint or is it the placement or is it the actual thing? Okay, so then go to the next slide. So this is a little bit more about each individual property. And again, there are highlights here. And then it also, so it's just an example of this one is special because of the architect. And then the conditions vary in this one because there are so many elements to it. Some of the other properties you'll see might say good. This condition just varies. And then rehabilitation is really kind of the key to what will happen within this property.
Just real quick on this,
Yeah.
on the slide, it looks like it's the whole property. Is that like, given kind of recent conversations and comments on that, is that as historically defined or as defined by?
So this red line right here is the property as it stands. It's like that is the boundary.
The landmark boundary.
Yes, the
Yeah,
current.
and what's the question is to expand that.
So yeah, that was the question back. So this graphic was actually created because that when we were creating the graphics, it was in process and it does show kind of the entire civic area and the relation to that. The Harbeck Bergheim House is actually connected to Beach Park as well, but the blue line in this case is the landmark boundary of that property. You can see there's a playground to the well, it would look like to the south of it, the way the map is laid out. And then you'll see overall this is in good condition. Within the assessment, there are more specifics on they're saying overall good, but there are things that we need to address as we look into that. And we're working through actually what those treatment recommendations look like. And Boulder Fire Station number 2, what you might know as the Pottery Lab, is also fairly close. Also rehabilitation, and that one is in good condition. We've put some funding into that over the last few years. And continuing to look what that looks like. And then so for the Harbeck House and the Pottery Lab, they're both these two partners who have aligned missions with Parks and Recreation. And then there's the Ronnie House. This one is actually found on Valmont City Park. This one is just off Valmont. It's probably it says poor to good. This one does need some work and some investment. We're looking at exactly what that is and attaching costs to that, and then we'll line what that looks like. You can see that from Valmont Road, and then there is a Valmont City Park had a master plan done not too long ago, and that does include this area and ideas and things that could happen in this area. We do have obligation to take care of this building. Platt Farmhouse is also in Valmont City Park. This is the one when you go to the off of Airport Road to the bike park. This is where there's some city offices. This was moved within the Valmont City Park property to keep its alignment with the creek that runs through there. This one is in good condition. It is highly used, so there are some things that we want to keep in good shape. This one is slated for rehabilitation as well. The Chautauqua Green. So this one, the Chautauqua property is quite large. And this is really the Chautauqua Green. And just to give you a little bit of kind of indication, right? Like the dining hall is in here and the auditorium is here. Here's the new playground tennis court. So this is overall in good condition. Most of this is the playground and landscapes. There's not as many buildings in this area either. Columbia Cemetery. This is the one where we have so much information. We really had to pare back what we wanted to add for this and make sure it was in alignment with all of the other properties. Last month, you probably heard this is where we worked with Historic Boulder. We do meet the spirits every 2 years. And then we split the proceeds from that. So they provided over $6,000 to the Play Foundation, which basically earmark for future improvements for rehabilitation at this site. This is in good condition, but again, there's lots of different things that have different types of significance and levels. Pearl Street Mall is probably the most complicated. It is part of a larger historic district. What the red outline here indicates is the historic district, and then the white area within that is actually the Parks and Recreation's maintenance responsibility, so to speak, of that entire area. And this is where you'll kind of see it goes into like the significance of the brick patterns and what they mean and that sort of thing. Boyd Smelter is Boulder's first smelter. This is along the Boulder Creek on the west, kind of towards the west side of the city. There are a few pieces that are still visually there. This shows in fair condition, but I think kind of in this one, I know some of the treatment recommendations are mostly education and identification of what they are and what it is. And then we go with the railroad resources. So we have 3 cars. There's a locomotive, a coach, and a caboose. They were in Central Park for a long time. They've been moved to the Golden Railroad Museum, and they're being very well cared for there. So we are working with them, looking at what needs. They're actually kind of, more in tune with how and what needs to happen on these pieces of history. So we're working closely with them to look at what that looks like. We do have a lease agreement with them that we would like to extend to have the trains stay down there. They are being kept in really good condition and available for folks to look at. There are at least 3 days a year that folks from Boulder can come down and experience them for free. And that'll continue throughout the process. And we basically kind of share some of the maintenance responsibilities because, for example, the coach they actually use in their very short train ride, so you can actually go in and experience what that feels like. So it's more than they would have been able to experience here.
So that's our property, but they host it
Yeah.
at the Golden Train Museum.
They host it, they hold insurance on it. They've actually been doing a fair amount of a maintenance to date.
Can I ask why was it moved from the park to the museum, just to better care for them, or what?
Yeah, so between graffiti fires, all kinds of fun things. It was a move to keep them safe. It's gone really well, and we've had a relationship with them. David and I have both been down there in the last few months, and they're in the best condition I've ever seen them in. All right, so just thinking about the future is just looking at the preservation and rehabilitation of them. And then just bringing the community, and that's where we talk about volunteer opportunities, programming, activities, education, interpretation, and fundraising. Also realizing we have limited resources, right? So as much as we would love to do a lot of those community-facing pieces, I think that's where we sometimes run into those limitations. So tonight might be that if you guys have priorities or thoughts on where the resources have the most value, I'd love to hear about some of that. So we'll stop there. If you guys have questions, what I didn't really talk about, didn't have my notes here, but what the next steps are. So the reason that we're doing the Historic Places Plan is we actually got a grant from the State Historic Fund that's paying for the majority of this plan. Again, it's that proactive document. So once we get to the end of the actual physical document that says, here's the properties in the context, the history, and then those treatment recommendations, rolling that into that CIP plan, and then looking at that annually and giving the treatment recommendations section the updates. So what we probably should add into some of the recommendations is much like the urban forest strategic plan that maybe we come back with you 2 years. We give that update as well of like where we're at and how we're moving forward. Right now, what we're doing is, as each property has its set of treatment recommendations, we're prioritizing those within the property, and then we have to look at them as kind of a system, right? And then we'll prioritize them amongst each other, and then get estimates and quotes and really be able to dial into what the ask will be over the next 5 years. Any questions? Yeah.
How do we sign up for Meet the Spirits?
Like you would like to act, or you would like to buy tickets?
I want to act. I want to be one of the spirits.
Tina can
I can
connect
do
you.
that, yes.
They are always looking for good people, and there's a lot of characters buried at Columbia Cemetery.
I was bummed last time. I didn't know about it. Like I want to sign up this time. And when is it?
It's every 2 years, so it'll happen again in 2020.
4.
Yeah,
You'll be on the Prab still.
I'll start practicing now. Just give me my
Character.
Yeah, the historical, so the partnership really works, like for the most part, Parks and Recreation helps take care of the logistics, because that's what we're good at. And then they usually kind of target getting folks, and then they help them with costumes and the stories and things like that. So I'll definitely help you hook up with that.
Put me on the list.
All right. Is there anyone online I missed?
Nope, good here.
Something I was wondering, maybe some PRAB meetings in the future could be at some of these historic places.
Good idea.
That would be lovely. We would love to return to field trip meetings. We just need the technology to facilitate a hybrid meeting, which is a challenge. You can tell we're working through it. This room, I know. Seeing the faces, like Mary's, I was just doing a quality check on the mics and the videos, right? Everyone looks like little ants in that TV camera there. So I assume this too will improve as we continue to do more hybrid, and it could be that at the recreation centers, we might get some hybrid technology. I don't know about it, the historic properties, but it would be lovely. Maybe we could do a tour.
In person.
Maybe we could do a tour.
Yeah, so that's actually, one of those things is engaging in activities, right? Is things that we know we want to look at doing is web pages, right? Like that's the easy answer to some things. But how do you make that more engaging? And so what you saw tonight are a lot of story maps, right? And so how the kind of the pictures and it scrolled through is a little bit different than a PowerPoint presentation. But something like Meet the Spirits too, is that interactive, and how do you kind of wrap those all together? And so we're looking towards our community to kind of bring up and have some. Great.
Why is it every other year? Why not every year?
It's a fundraiser and it's a heavy lift. And it's really historic Boulder, and we as a partner. And every other year, they also try to do something else, like they do a historic house tour, or they've actually done a tour of the cemetery in Gold Hill on the off year. So they try to mix it up.
I just wanted to caveat one thing in that doesn't necessarily apply to historic places, but just so you on PRAB know, in the time I've been there, we had, but pre-COVID, I guess, we had a lot of tours. And I know we just talked about that, but it was pretty fun. So I'd suggest that you guys do more of that. It's fun, for example, the golf course before it's finished, or some of the historic places do a little, and as you can imagine, we have to invite the public, which is fun. A few people would show up, but it makes it a little more jolly than just coming to a meeting.
It's pretty jolly in here, Mary.
I mean,
I second that, Mary.
we just need mobile technology.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, we have one more matter from the department. Thank you so much for bearing with us. As Mark and I have been talking these last couple of weeks, there are so many planes that have been in the hangar that are coming out onto the runway, and you're getting that. We're getting organized. Here's the flight plan. In the next year, there's going to be lots of planes in the air, lots of traffic control to make sure that they all do what they're supposed to do. And I just appreciate your patience while we cover a lot of logistics tonight. We have one more matter from the department to give you an overview on really outside of the urban canopy, what is our most valuable asset, our 3 recreation centers. We're going to be talking a lot more about this tonight as a very high level and quick introduction because of some critical milestones that are coming up, and Tina's going to cover that item as well.
Yeah, and I'll try and do it quick. I know it's getting late for everybody, but nope, that's not what we want. And I'll get this. All right, there we go. So what we're calling is our rec facility funding strategy. So I guess we'll just kind of go along and start with an overview of where this is starting from. So there are 2 different departments that are really involved in this. So there's our facilities and link department, and obviously the Parks and Recreation department. So they just recently finished a 2021 facilities master plan, and kind of the big outcome from that is just the identification of, they're looking at 75 different buildings with 1.8 million square feet, right? So we work with facilities, and that 75 buildings does include our 3 recreation centers. In addition, obviously the 2022 master plan, which included an indoor recreation facility assessment. Basically out of that is we know there's aging infrastructure, right? And then we're also keeping our eye towards needs and trends. Now I'm going to start with this being a very high level, kind of just thinking about the facilities master plan is looking to all those buildings, and they've put together charts and done all kinds of analysis that are right. And so I'll show you in a minute about what we're called the inflection point of a facility. But they know that we're hitting that point on a lot of facilities, and facilities, especially with the recent escalation, are very, very expensive. So they're looking at how do they look across their system, not just Parks and Recreation, but things like Alpine Balsam that are coming up, and just other buildings that they're worried about. How do they fund those looking through the next few years? And then our master plan, right? We're looking at how old our facilities are, how they're functioning, And then I'm sure you've seen some of the things about South Boulder Recreation Center and some of the struggles that we're having with the actual building operations in that particular facility. So this is that quick chart that just really shows, right, as the building is new, the cost of ownership is low. As it gets towards its end of life, it dramatically increases. So what we're looking at is that inflection point, right, of it's about that point where things start to, kind of turn over. And then towards the end of the life, you're definitely putting more into it than it's worth, and you should be thinking about what we're going to be moving forward with those. There were some descriptions of what new, middle, and end of life mean in the memo, so I won't go through those with you guys. But just a kind of quick point is, right, our South Boulder Recreation Center is 50 years old. That puts us past that inflection point. We know we've had closures and other things. East Boulder is 31 years old. So that's right at that inflection point. And then North Boulder Recreation Center, because it had a renovation and addition in 2001, it's 22 years old with the base of 49, right? Just taking that. So it is approaching that inflection point, but it is the facility that is in the best condition. So the interesting part about this, right, is facilities are kind of the ones who are looking at that larger capital for the building, but they're also working with us very closely. But as you can see, they have the pillars of asset management. They used to be facilities asset management department. It was changed to facilities and fleet with some reorg. And then we have our 6 key themes. They're fairly aligned, but they come out slightly differently. So you just see that helix is in, really we have to blend those and look what that looks like. So we're not only blending what we need, how we're going to finance it, but what timing looks like too. So what timeline they might look at is a little bit different than maybe we need or want as well. And then adding what we would think of as community engagement in there. Certainly can't think too far ahead on what is going to happen in a recreation center without talking to people. Then there's kind of the flip side of, do we talk to people too early and get them excited if we don't know if the funding is there yet or not? So it's kind of a little bit of balance that we're walking on right now. You guys have seen this graphic through the master plan. So we're really looking at, as we're tying things together, how do we look at sort of more innovative solutions? So the community engagement is really thinking about how do we start to think about recreation centers as a system versus individuals. Meanwhile, the research part of that is facilities has a consultant on board, and they're looking at creative solutions for financing. And I will have them in to talk to you guys a little bit more specifically about what that means. But right now, they take care of the building, so to speak. And it is a potential of having someone invest in having a maintenance contract. Because they're still exploring that and they don't know what the outcomes are going to be, if it's even feasible, we'll bring you back more information if we find out what those answers really are. And then obviously the policy directions, those master plans that came from both facilities and fleet and ourselves. So a little bit more about when I say explore recreation centers as a system, that sounds kind of funny, but when we're starting to look at, if we kind of go back to environmental sustainability, financial stewardship, social responsibility on their side, you look at energy, for example, and then on our side, we're looking at staffing, we're looking at level of service. And so how do we combine those so we can have efficiencies, financial efficiencies, energy efficiencies, equity efficiencies, and still maintain or increase the level of service? So thinking about, for example, when you recreation centers as a system, we hear a lot of times, Boulder is who Boulder is, and why don't we have that special facility? In some cases, we try to do those facilities across the city. But an example of a sort of a centralized or a system would be gymnastics. It's in one location and it does really well. It's a beautiful facility. Now imagine if we tried to do gymnastics in all 3 rec centers. What would that look like? So I think the curiosity is talking to PRAB and start the conversation with the community is, do we start to look at these as a system? And the willingness to have maybe some centralized recreation access, but it might take us a little longer to drive to them. But could they be more special? Could we have, so that's sort of where the conversation starts. This is a really high level thing because what we're talking about is, let's talk about first is, are those recreation centers as a system of interest for conversation? Is the community, is PRAB on board? Is community on board? So before we even get to the point of planning out a recreation center, what's going to be in a recreation center, we want to dial back to kind of those overall values of what we really want our city to look like. So the first thing in this process is looking at the planned action reviews. And what that means is I'm looking at the aquatics facilities plan and the recreation facility assessment, the master plan. And then we're also looking at the actions that are planned in the facilities master plan and looking at how those blend. Our first opportunity for community engagement will be late March to just really start to talk about that high level of discussion of what we want our system to look like long term, engaging that interest in that conversation as a system. And then what is kind of pushing us to have that conversation now is that facilities is really starting to do some evaluation of what that could look like in order to figure out how much do they need to even think about financing. So they're kind of working parallel. But what will be really nice is if we want to start talking about this as a system, they've already got some sort of options laid out, priced just for examples to even look at this financial opportunity. So they'll be ready with some of that information in April. So I would love to have that conversation with our community before that happens, even knowing we don't have the funding planned out yet. So timeline on, right, like this begs to just say like, well, when are we going to redo the recreation centers then, right? Well, really, we have to look at what the outcomes are in early April to see if that creative financial solution is even an option. If it's not an option, then we have to look at other types of resources to make that happen. Okay, so yeah, so when I talk about engagement in late March, the things that we're actually going to do, we don't know yet, so that's why we don't have dates on there yet. We're sort of laying out the engagement plan for that right now. What we think we'll probably do is some micro engagements and then more kind of office hours at the recreation centers that are open to the public. It could be a potential public meeting, but we want to also have online versions of that so folks across the city and in our entire community, right? Because we know they live, work, and play here as part of our communities. We want to be able to engage all of those folks. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Just the only thing I'd add is, and you pick up on this, is facilities isn't just focusing on the rec centers, they're looking across the city at all facilities because of this long-term funding situation. So we're part of that big equation, as it were.
Yes.
Any questions?
So how does the decision-making process work with 2 departments, that have different goals, different interests, different priorities?
No, I was gonna go and then I realized.
Pandora's box for such a.
No, it's not. It's actually,
Actually, we meet, is it every month now, or every 2 weeks?
We have a subgroup that meets weekly and then we have one that meets.
And it's just excellent collaboration. But like the reason why we're bringing this tonight is because frankly, we started 6 months ago in the background, started to think about this initial scoping. So yeah, it's a really good collaboration between the departments.
And what if there's a point where there's disagreement? Like, do you guys arm wrestle? The building stays open.
Scissors. And partner and partner hot wings, just until no one likes. That's supposed to stay in it.
They've got me training now. No, so zoom out, because it's important to correct something you said. You said different departments with different goals, and I would say it differently. We do have different missions. Ours is to promote health and well-being, and theirs is to ensure that sustainability and great operations of city facilities, right? But if you all can picture our nesting dolls graphic that we show every year when we talk about the action plan, we both want what's best for this community and to be good fiscal stewards of city dollars. And we operate under the Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan and the city sustainability, equity, and resilience framework. And so if thumb resting weren't effective, what we would do is, let's say the decision point is around, I'm going to really simplify this. It's around the type of material we use for a building envelope, right? And they're recommending CMU blocks because that's going to hold in temperature the best and whatever. And we'd say, no, you really can't do gymnastics in CMU blocks because blah, blah, blah. I'm making all this up, right? We would zoom out and say, okay, pros and cons of those, you know, the impact and the benefits on the environment and sustainability versus the impact on programming. And we would make a decision. And I'm confident that we would be able to do that, like the really good local government employees that we are. I guess I'll add one other thing. As we charter projects like this, we typically set up decision-making frameworks, right? Because even if it's not a disagreement between two departments, you come up with tensions in projects. You all saw it as we talked about the golf course and the value engineering, right? Well, at the end of the day, we had core critical functions that building needed to perform. And so, yeah, did we take off some of the prettier things? We did. It's still performing those core critical functions.
This like, you know, classic pros and cons SWOT analysis, and also things like choosing by advantages. So there's like established design processes that help get us there that we can work in. So,
Yeah, I think a good example, right, is like facilities was kind of thinking like, what if we did X? And, you know, they came and asked us, and the answer is, we're not going to do any of that until we go through public engagement, and then helping them understand our public engagement process, what that looks like and what the timeline is, right? And then the understanding and the knowledge is like, oh, okay, so this, right, like these three things will be on a different timeline, right? They have a whole like slew of other buildings that they need to work on. So they'll work with us on that timeline and be able to move things around. So a lot of it is just conversations, and we all have this one Boulder mind, right? Of like, we really want to do the best thing for our community overall. So I think that and I'll always say it, like, we have the most amazing staff who just cares more about the community than, you know, than getting their way. So we're fortunate in Boulder.
good question.
Is there, this may be too early in the process, but is there, you know, obviously these are high use facilities with a lot of usage, and, you know, compared to like the city building that you maybe have some folks come in for permitting or whatever it is, how does that kind of rank higher on a prioritization scale, or it's too early to start talking about how they prioritize the needs?
So I would say in this case, it's not prioritizing the need right now. They're looking at, so facilities kind of looking at like the deterioration of buildings, right? That timeline, what's that inflection point? Now the rec centers are special, right? They're, you know, they have a component of community element that other buildings don't have, right? It's not like a normal office building. So in those conversations, they just realize it's a different animal. It doesn't make it more important or less important, but it is a different kind of animal. Oh, Chuck, yeah.
I was curious why the rec centers are considered separately from the other capital improvement projects. It seems like we do our golf course and our reservoir facilities on a regular cycle, but we are now in a place where we don't have money for the South Boulder Rec Center, and I wonder why that is.
Well, basically the rec centers are managed, as it were, in terms of the building envelope by facilities. That's what Tina was pointing out. Whereas we manage other facilities across our park system. We're actually in a process internally looking at the facilities across the city, all the different departments, to talk about collaboration and update how we do that to make it more efficient down the road. But yes, for now, the rec centers facilities is looking for the funding mechanism for those. We'll be working with them. Whereas the golf facility was an internal facility to Parks and Rec.
And I guess I want to say that a little differently is that while we partner with facilities on all of our vertical assets, right, including the golf course and the Boulder Reservoir, we cannot achieve major renovations or retrofits to the recreation centers with Parks and Recreation capital. It's not enough money. And so the capital for the recreation centers has always been a larger conversation. The major renovation of the North Boulder Recreation Center in 2001, similarly, right? So for all three buildings, we're talking tens of millions of dollars. We might hit three digits there on just the three recreation centers. We would never have enough money to do more than replace a boiler or do the patching and fixing that we've been doing. And so it requires the partnership and the city thinking. The other thing I'll add is we have this incredible team of landscape architects that you've met. We don't employ an architect in our department. It doesn't make sense to. And so we want to partner with them for their expertise.
Can I give some numbers?
It would, I want to add one other thing to your point about us being behind on the recreation centers. I don't think that's a function of the partnership and the funding. I think it's just a function of us needing to do a better job. And as Mark said, we'll be doing that moving forward.
Yeah, just to give a sense of it, the things like cost escalation, the inflection point, understanding increasing maintenance costs, that's when facilities really start to see, and then energy efficiency with the rec centers. When they added all that up to do a typical renovation of like a rec center is somewhere between $50 to $60 million at the moment. So times that by 3. Our CIP budget, Jackson, you can correct me, through 2028 is probably at around $55 million for the whole department. So that gives you a sense of the scale here.
Okay, thank you. And another quick comment is that as we're moving forward in a carbon constrained world, let's say, the idea of 15-minute neighborhoods really has real appeal to me. Being able to walk to where you want to exercise and where you want to shop and where you work and where the library is, all those things are very important. And so thinking super carefully about, as you mentioned earlier, how to allocate which facilities are hosting which programs in terms of how it generates trips and whether it's allowing more people to access programs within 15 minutes walking of their homes, I think will be super important. And thinking outside the box, things like renting spaces for popular programs to keep them near housing, maybe making use of the YMCA facilities, things like that, I think should be part of the discussion moving forward.
Yeah, Chuck, thank you. And partnerships is kind of part of that conversation too, right? So, space within our facilities that we have partners that are using and what does that look like? So whether it's, PBSD partnerships, CU partnerships, those are things we're going to look through and explore as well through this process. But I think that gets closer to when we start designing. The point that we're at, we're so far away from that or even knowing when the funding will be available. And we're just dialing up to kind of where you were talking about in the conversation of that 15-minute, what do we want accessible within 15 minutes and what can we centralize and kind of make it worth the extra trip. So that's kind of where we're headed, if that makes sense.
Yep, totally.
Great. If there aren't any other questions.
Do you guys have a prize for staff who give 2 presentations in one evening?
Like time in the morning.
Good job today.
Thank you. All right, back to you.
We're done with matters from the department.
Great.
Great. All right, well, at this point, should we talk? Do we want to take a 5-minute break or do we want to muscle through? Muscle through?
Let's go.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, muscle through. Let's. Okie dokie. Hold on. Okay, new members onboarding and orientation.
So Pam, I'm going to talk about the first part. I put this on your agenda. simply to start, just kind of the brain work, the thinking, of how we're going to bring in the new members, on April 24th. So, so just to preface, our next meeting with, Pam and Mary, our last meeting with them will be on March 20th. And then we bring in our new members on April 24th.
April 3rd for the study session.
Oh,
right?
April 3rd for the study session. Yes, we are going to invite them to the April 3rd study session. But on April 24th, I wanted to see if you as a PrEP group wanted to reintroduce the letter that Mary had put together back in 2020, where she welcomed you all welcomed the new members. You gave a little piece about yourselves. And it was about a 2 or 3 page letter, and I attached it. If you guys had a chance to look at that and want to talk about it, that'd be great. And then I also noted that you also had designated a member of the PrAB to be a mentor to the incoming members. So if you want to think about who would be up for that role. And then, so on April 24th, we'll have the member introductions, the election of officers, and an icebreaker kind of an activity. And I'm wondering, do we want to have that take place before the 6 p.m. meeting? Half hour before, while we're eating? So those are things that I just wanted to kind of start you guys thinking on. So open to discussion.
I'll start on the letter. I think the letter looks great. I just think it needs new information.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I think staff can just plug and play on that if that's okay, you know, make sure that our info is updated and replace Charlotte, you know, Rosa. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of stuff that just can be, make sure the links go to the right master plan.
So if somebody wants to take that on, I can work with the person. They want to update it, I can work with the person to update it.
Well, what I'm saying is, was this created by a board member in the past? Like this was written up by a board member?
Mary.
Okay.
But Elliot, I hear you proposing that we just update like that the executive assistant is Rosa. These are the current board members, that the things that are just clear and don't need board input. Is that your recommendation with
That's
some
my
other
recommendation.
updates?
Yeah.
Got it. I'd love to hear the boards.
Sounds great. If you guys don't mind, we can.
But
I
I
think
think
it
that
just-
board members need to send short bio sketches. New board members need to send short bio sketches to Rosa to include.
Yeah, so Anita and Sunny, you will no longer be the rookie board members. If you look on page 30 of the packet, you'll see the bios and you may remember those. So Chuck's proposing that you email Rosa your bio to be included on this.
And will this go out as a e-document or on paper, Rosa or Ally?
I'm sure back in the day it was a paper document, right? I was proposing, an e-document. We don't have the onboarding yet from the city clerk's office. We don't know what date that will take place, but we were hoping that we could insert that with our new members' packets.
And if it is an e-document going forward, when I got on, I got a paper mailed to my house, a welcome letter. But it's fine, but then I think the update would need to include
Mary, you accidentally muted yourself.
sorry. So it would have to include, or would best include links to the documents that are noted in the timeline. So like the master plan, let's see. And I don't know if that is a super high skill to do that, to get the links put into the e-document. So for example, a new member could just bam, click on that and get to the master plan in attachment A, or somehow, let's see.
I think that's doable, Mary, because it's very similar to the PrAB packet that we share with you all.
I said the same thing, not that we're on that subject yet, but in the PrAB handbook, that if it is going to be online, that it's very linkable. Yeah.
So what about the icebreaker, the activity, the new member activity? 5:30 to 6?
Yeah. Good idea.
And
that'll be on April 3rd or April.
no, it would be on April 24th. Yeah, because I think we leave the study session as just the study session.
We'll awkwardly not introduce.
I was gonna say, we
at
should-
the study session.
That's what we're working out with the clerk's office. We may need to convert that to a regular meeting to do swearing in, and we're waiting for the instructions on that. I would encourage you to be cordial, even though it's a study session.
So, so I know Elliot and Jason had come up with, the activity at our retreat in November. Is that something you would like to lead for the new member introduction?
I think our newest members would love to step up to the plate and do that.
Yeah, these were so good.
We're happy to pass the time.
So something to think about. That's why I put it on your agenda so that we can start the brain work.
You're very creative, right? And then the mentor program, I think we stick with it. I think it was a good, Jason was my mentor, notwithstanding, I think really well oriented.
Mary and Pam, I think both the letter and the mentor assignments are things that you helped foster during your tenure. So one more example of how your legacy will live on.
Thank you.
So that was it for my A. We go to B now.
Sure.
I feel like I've been doing a lot of talking tonight, so Chuck, do you want me to handle this, or do you want to take the lead on the handbook discussion? Or Mary, you're doing it with me.
Oh, or have you go ahead. My connection is intermittent enough that I keep.
So I think last time we talked about how the members of the board would review the current handbook and then send me and Rosa their feedback about how it could be improved. Either like big picture suggestions or, you could actually make edits to the document. And then we can compile that, and then we can prepare a draft revised handbook to the group at the next meeting. And we wanted to make sure that Mary had the chance before her last meeting to engage in this process. So if you haven't sent me your proposed thoughts on the handbook, I've gotten a feedback from a couple of members, not everybody. Just send me a Word document with your thoughts, or just an email with your thoughts, and make sure to CC Rosa, or send it to Rosa and then CC me. And then she will help me compile the feedback, and then I will meet with Mary and we will figure out how to do that. And then, as I said, we'll present a finished product or a draft revised handbook to the whole group next time, and we can have a discussion about it at the next meeting, and then we can take that feedback and then bring a final new PrAB handbook at the next meeting for approval.
Elliot, can I do a date check with you? So today is Monday, February 27th. Our next meeting is 3 weeks from today because of the spring break. So you're proposing that all that's going to happen, and I just want to clarify, in the next 3 weeks.
Yes.
You mean the April business meeting?
So it would be I don't know, like when we're gonna, as a group, I think if we were gonna talk about it at their last meeting. So whatever their last meeting is, we're gonna talk about the proposed changes. So that's that's March.
That's March 20th, is 3 weeks from today.
Yeah, so then that would be enough time.
Yeah.
For us to make sure. I think like if you haven't gotten me your feedback, get it to me, as soon as you can. And then we'll take everybody's ideas. 3 weeks should be enough time for Mary and I to put our heads together and put something together. And then how far in advance, Rosa, do you need it for it's the Wednesday before, right? The meeting that you send out the packet. So you'd need it like the day before that. So what's the date?
Tuesday, the 14th is the day. It would be great to have whatever it is you want attached. The package gets created Wednesday morning, the 15th, and we get it to the clerk's office by noon for all the behind the scenes magic.
All right, so let me just put this in mind. Tuesday, the 14th.
Yes. Correct.
Okay.
And so I might recommend you pick a day by when people send you their feedback or forever hold their peace.
Yeah. This Friday. Yeah. Thank you.
March 3rd.
Yeah, March 3rd. And it doesn't have to be super detailed. It could just be like, this needs to be improved in the following 3 ways, and the feedback I've gotten so far has been really helpful. So. And that's all I think I had for that.
I just, regarding this same subject, it seems like there's a couple of things that we might want to clarify this meeting for the new oncoming people. And one of them is the Greenways Committee is one that I can think of. I've emailed the people on Greenways and they didn't have a city staffer. So we had all of one meeting last year, and this year there hasn't been one. So that's one committee coming up. Number 2, at one point, we had all been assigned kind of a city, I think I got kind of forestry department, but I never really met with anyone. And I think it's very cool to have the idea of having a PRAB member that is partnered either for a year, and maybe they move around and you guys can decide this, or we can all decide it before Pamela and I leave, but to have a little bit more of that personal interaction. You know, I would have loved it to develop a little bit more and then have had a little bit more involvement with forestry department, for example. And I can't remember if there's any other committees or things, but just to have those roles so they don't come up a year from now and then the new people and it's kind of like, oh, I didn't know that was going to be an option. Just to kind of lay out all the things, all the extra things, like for example, Elliot, I think you and maybe even Tara were on the master plan group. You know that, but that's obviously not going to come up for 4 or 5 years when they do the halfway point thing. Does everybody even know what I'm talking about?
Yep. The Greenways thing we talked about, I think last year, and that sounds exciting. So.
But is there anything else like that we can get organized for the new people coming so that ducks in a row, so that maybe even there's a blurb in the welcome letter that delineates all the opportunities that they might have? You know, choices to do a little bit more different things.
So something we could do to support this conversation, if you like, is one, we can check with the Greenways Department. They're doing a joint board meeting, or the Greenways Advisory Committee. I feel like that's gone through an iteration, and we can get an update on that. The other thing we can get an update on is I do believe there's some joint board work coming up on the Boulder Junction area project that is coming up. And so we can try and gather some information about potential projects where a liaison might be appropriate. And then typically every April, the board has revisited what Mary's talking about is the email assignments, where I think there was a period where there were maybe lots of emails coming in and the board said, hey, I'll take res, I'll take forestry. And so that community members heard from the board, but 7 of you didn't feel the need to respond to every email. And so there was a divvying up that happened. And so what I think would make sense is to prepare that for an April conversation when the new member's on board. food for thought, you might also consider doing it at a different timeline. I think this is where Anita and Sunny could be helpful in their experience. What I've observed is that first meeting, new members aren't raising their hand for anything, right? Like, so it just might be something that's considered as part of perhaps the retreat in October, when people have their feet underneath them. Would agree.
I was listening a lot. It's a lot. I remember getting the package and it was a lot of information.
It's very on par that at first board members are learning what the department does, the role of a board member, and you've been doing it virtually. I'm so impressed with all of you figuring this out without the benefit of meeting in person
And remembering names.
So it's up to you how you want to handle that, but that's, if you want that to come back in April with some input from staff, or you want to talk about Mary, you were recommending that it be a March conversation?
Oh, it's not that I don't care, but I have little investment, but I just don't want, you know, the things to get dropped. Pamela and I are kind of part of the old guard. And so I just don't want big chunks to get dropped off. That's all.
No dropping of big chunks.
That's in order. Yeah, I mean, unless there's some opportunity between now and the retreat, I would say we could talk about it at the retreat or a couple meetings in.
Or could we include a list of these things in the handbook?
Yeah.
Something that might be a way to memorialize it.
Yeah. Ally, would it be possible for staff to provide a list of potential liaison opportunities as part of this handbook redo? Or is that something that needs more time to generate?
It's not that it needs more time to generate. It's not static, right? It's fluid based on the work plan of our department and others on any given year. And so to put it in a document that's going to get PDF'd and referenced seems, I think we probably want to be a little more, I mean, we can make it part of the conversation for sure. I don't know. I don't think it should be part of the handbook.
Well, that's a fair point. I think that the concern that Mary has is that if there's an opportunity, we want to make sure that there's no opportunity that gets, missed. There you go. That's the word. And so if there's something that's like comes out, or that there's like the Greenways Foundation, or not the foundation, but the whatever that is. The Greenways thing. If that's something that is a spring opportunity, then like we want to know about it.
Yeah.
Then versus like waiting until after the fact.
Here's a path forward. The handbook perhaps there's a page that talks about roles of a PRAB member. That's something we've talked about. I think Sandra did a lovely job in that presentation last October. I could see the handbook and new board members benefiting from a page of what is the role of a PRAB member? And you can talk about the shalls and the mays. And you could also have that there are liaisons and major projects like the master plan will have a liaison, and you could describe these things that will come up in the course of a year so that they don't get lost, but that it isn't written in concrete what it is that might look like in any given year.
Right, but how are we going to know what the opportunities are, like at all? I think that's the main thing, is like making sure everybody on the PRAB like knows that there is this opportunity, and that makes sense about the handbook.
And I think it should be part of that email conversation that happens. And I think April's too soon, right? Sometime in the summer or the fall, there could be a conversation around PRAB duties.
Okay.
And if you look at page 32, the last page of our packet, I realized that, 3 years ago, I put a little thing called ongoing. It's the last square on the last page. And it says participate in additional opportunities to be determined. So I didn't even realize that when I brought it up, but I guess it's been on my mind. I think because, as you all know, and Ally, you know, I thought I would, I thought being on a board would be a much more active thing and not just as passive of a thing. So I think I just don't want other people to come on all raring to go, but bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and then be like, oh, wait, I'm just listening to presentations? Like, what do I get to do?
We have it on our May agenda, and then maybe you all can come up, in addition to the email. I think it's more than just emails, but it's like other opportunities.
It's liaison opportunities,
Yeah,
right?
other opportunities. We could kind of have that for April to talk about in May. Maybe is that okay?
Sure.
Chuck's got his hand recently. Chuck?
Yeah, Chuck, are you there?
We can't really.
That's at the retreat. The retreat.
Maybe you can see in the chat.
We hear like every fifth word, Chuck, sorry.
Try the chat function.
Retreat might be a good time to review annually what the upcoming opportunities are. Can't hear me? Yeah, I'll try that.
Yeah, Chuck is saying he thinks it would be appropriate to include at the annual retreat. And I'm saying that out loud to capture that for the record, because the chat doesn't get included. So unfortunately, it's not a good Band-Aid. Here's what I'm hearing though. We're gonna follow up. What's that?
That's just not till November, and then that's like,
Yeah.
and we also, like, given our last retreat, maybe that was not norm, but we didn't do any of that really. We just kind of talked about long-term projects and not specifics of the problem.
Yeah,
So
seems like a long time to wait.
I think, I mean, I'd second whoever proposed May. I think that's a good time, like enough time for new people to be, a month or two in, and then like a time for the department to kind of gather any intel on what else is out there, and then we can have that conversation in May. All right, I was looking at you, Ali.
Yeah. I think it's up to the board, right? This is an item that you own and we'll support as best we can.
Second that.
And while it does take 6 months to get kind of invested and get to know your role, there's also something about capturing the enthusiasm and investment of a new person, as well. What is that book by Covey, Franklin Covey, The First 90 Days in Any Leadership Role? You want to harness your energy and your focus in those first few months.
All right, I've got a note that we'll calendar this and we have agenda setting on Thursday with the chair and vice chair that we can put this on the calendar for May. So that'll be.
Barry wins the background award.
Mary wins the background award. There you go. All right. I think you have one more matter from the board, just your check-in on engagement opportunities.
Looks like Chuck is not able to attend the Thursday agenda setting meeting. For a substitute
This Thursday?
this Thursday.
That meeting is at 1:45 on Thursday the 2nd.
Thursday is. At what time?
1:45. James meeting?
Rosa,
Yes.
I don't have it on my calendar, on my work calendar. Can you please send it to my work email?
Okay.
Thank you.
I mean, I can do it. Why don't you take this one? Because I unfortunately.
Someone else wants to, right?
Yeah.
Barry, do
Okay,
you
so
want?
please-
Send it to Jason
Okay.
and I add your work address.
Thanks.
Yeah. I like that.
Perfect. My last one.
So Pam, there is one other bullet point on that matters from the board.
I'm sorry, what?
There is one last bullet point on matters from the board.
Yes, I know. It's 5 a.m. where I'm at, so I'm fading fast. So
Okay.
yeah. Okay,
9 p.m. and I'm thinking.
Where are you? Down?
I am in Italy.
Oh,
Oh.
I was gonna say, I think I could win the background award if the sun was out.
I bet.
So matters from the board, anybody want to perhaps speaks? Anybody like to start?
Chair.
Sunny wants to say that.
Perfect. Okay, sorry, Sunny, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I attended the Valentine's Day sweetheart dance with my husband and both of our kids. We loved it. It was so fun. Really great event. And I also just want to shout out to Keely with gymnastics. Again, it's just awesome, but we got a letter today saying that there's going to be a exercise class that the timing works for people who are dropping their kids off at gymnastics, which is something I've been thinking would be so great. And she read my mind. So that was a great little connection. So we can get some exercise while our kids get some exercise.
Class for adults, you mean? Oh, I didn't get that.
Yeah.
So
It's for like a specific time on Tuesdays,
Okay.
4:30 and 5:30.
That's great.
So yeah, that was cool.
And she's the best. I agree. I had a question. The Valence Bike Park, is that, it's closed, right?
Probably, I mean, typically it's closed anytime the trail conditions are bad. So mud, bikes cycling through the wet dirt can cause tons of damage and maintenance for us. So it's closed when it's wet.
Thanks. There you go.
Anyone else? Chuck, Mary? Okay, great. Well, then, if everybody's okay, we'll adjourn and forgive me, I don't know what the time is. It 8:01 or 9:01?
9:02.
9:02.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Then we'll see everybody on March 20th.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you for a great night.